Greetings, my fellow Americans. This is your President Samuel Ronan speaking, and today is Taco Tuesday. It is a new week of political madness in our world, but specifically in our country. So, let's get started. There we go. Hello, Anna. It looks like I connected and disconnected like 5 different times from the server. That's a great, what do you call it? A great omen for this stream. So as I was saying, today is going to be domestic affairs. We're going to talk about things that have been happening since Thursday, over the weekend, things that our country is doing in our name using our tax dollars to cement fascism. So, with that being said, let's get right into it. We have a full list, everything between Trump's corruption, Lia Smith, unfortunately being found deceased, and the government shutdown, among many, many other things to talk about today. So, let's start off with corruption and work our way through this list, shall we? Let's start with corruption.
This moment from a press conference last week highlights one of the starkest potential ethical conflicts of the Trump administration.
I have a lawsuit that was doing very well, and when I became president, I said, I'm sort of suing myself. I don't know, how do you settle the lawsuit? I'll say, give me X dollars, right?
Look, the ethical issues here are so simple, you almost don't need an ethical expert to explain them. The person running the government is seeking money from the government. Let's break that down. He talked about a couple of legal cases that really have no parallel in American history. The first claim, generally known as the Russia investigation, is about whether the Trump campaign conspired with Russian intelligence operatives to interfere with the 2016 election. The second is about the classified documents case that includes...
So, for those of you that might not be familiar, since that was quite a bit ago, this was about the first administration, right? The first term between 2016 and 2020, right? And back then, there was a lot of assumption that Trump was a Russian plant. Now, that's still quite possible, but now it seems like perhaps maybe it was Israeli influence more so than Russian influence, or maybe even Russian influence got him in the first term and then Israeli influence got him for the second term. Either which way, that's the first legal case, right? The Mar-a-Lago is the fact that he had classified documents at his private resort, which is a big, big no-no. And granted, every president and every major head of the country has had some amount of classified documents at their home or at some sort of private residence of some sort, but it was an unprecedented number of these things going on, right? And the legal case, which we'll get into it, is between Trump and the United States government. And usually when you settle a lawsuit, it is because both parties agree that rather than let this go through the trial process, we'll just agree to exchange some sum of money and call it a day. In this case, the litigation process has been going on for 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. He'll explain that in a second. Without any sort of resolution. But now that Trump is in the office again and thus able to control what, or at least influence what the state does, he can easily write himself a check for apparently $230 million, which is unprecedented levels of corruption.
Included a search of Trump's home in Mar-a-Lago. Trump filed a pair of legal claims for compensation filed with the Justice Department and the FBI. Trump's argument is that these cases that were pursued against him were essentially violations of his rights, that this was malicious, politically motivated.
Which is nuts, because he's been violating the rights of immigrants, of Democrats, of citizens, of just everybody under the sun, unilaterally dismantling our checks and balances systems, invading our cities with the National Guard, committing extrajudicial murders off the coasts of Venezuela and Colombia, using ICE as his own personal secret police forces, you name it. He's been violating and engaging in political motivated persecution. So like the fucking audacity, right?
Prosecution. So each of Trump's claims amount to about $150 million, a total of $230 million. When the Justice Department gets a claim like this, they have basically two options. They can fight it, which likely means going to court, or they can settle it. It's hard to imagine, given how Trump runs the Justice Department, that this Justice Department will fight him on these claims. There's another really important element to Trump talking about this, is that standing just feet away from the president is Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General. Before he got that job, Todd Blanche was President Trump's personal lawyer, and he represented him in the Mar-a-Lago case that is the subject of one of Trump's legal claims for compensation. Justice Department regulations require that a settlement of that size has to be approved by the Deputy Attorney General or the Associate Attorney General. That job is held by Stanley Woodward. Stan Woodward is a very important lawyer in Trump's inner circle. He has represented a number of Trump's senior advisors, including Dan Scavino, Peter Navarro, and even Kash Patel. Woodward also worked in the Mar-a-Lago documents case. So we asked the Justice Department, would Todd Blanche or Stan Woodward recuse themselves from making decisions involving these claims? They told us that Todd Blanche and Stan Woodward would follow the advice of career ethics officials. It is worth noting, however...
Bullshit! They're gonna follow the ethics officials, considering the things that they've been polling this entire time. Also, convenient that Trump's personal lawyers are in the top positions of the Justice Department, so that when things like this come up, they can just conveniently be a part of the actual cases themselves. Now, he brought up recusal. That's when, if you were the litigator, or if you were part of the case that was being brought to trial, and you had involvement in it, but now you're on the other side of it as a judge or prosecutor or defendant, whatever the case may be, you're supposed to recuse yourself, as in remove yourself from that trial, that litigation, so that there is no untoward behavior going on. And these two clowns are claiming that that's what they'll do, when there has been no evidence or example that this administration will even remotely follow ethics requirements. Because if so, we wouldn't be invading our own cities, we wouldn't be using a secret police force, and we certainly wouldn't be committing extrajudicial murders in international waters. He's using the Justice Department as his personal vendetta czars, and talk about a conflict of interest. Right. On top of the fact that they are his personal vendetta czars. Like, they were his personal vendetta czars to begin with, and now he's putting them in positions of power.
The Attorney General fired the top career ethics advisor at the department. What's in many ways...
Right. So hold on, we stopped him right in the middle of talking about that. So let's hear this real quick.
Woodward would follow the advice of career ethics officials. It is worth noting, however, the Attorney General fired the top career ethics advisor at the department.
The Attorney General, who is the top of the Justice Department, and the two lackeys that were put in the next top two largest positions, fired the ethics
It's worth
commission
noting, however,
guy.
the Attorney General fired the
So, I mean, oh yeah, we'll take the advice of the ethics commissioner. By the way, that position is empty, so we're going to take our own advice, which is to give this man $230 million and our own personal cut of probably, 20 or 30%? Like, when we say that this is the most corrupt administration in American history, like, it isn't even close. This makes Watergate seem like a walk in the park, like wearing a tan suit. And Obama himself is an imperialist war criminal. But we can't even talk about his crimes because the man's so damn charismatic that we'd have to spend more time peeling away the layers of his charm just to get to the imperialism, right? This makes Bush did 9/11 look like a failure of negotiation with Afghanistan and Iraq, right? The level of corruption happening in the White House right now with this administration is unprecedented, and is exactly why there were so many checks and balances built into the Constitution in the first place. But the framers, I assume, never foresaw a situation in which all three branches were acting in collusion and every single department within the government working in collusion.
Top career ethics advisor at the department. What's in many ways the most remarkable thing is there's nothing in the Justice Department regulations that require them to publicly announce when they've reached a major settlement. So it's not clear that we will even know if a deal is struck, when it's struck, or how much it's for.
Which is nuts too, because a settlement is between two parties, right? And the two parties agree based on a set of circumstances when or how much the money should be, right? So say you're in a lawsuit with me over you stole my family Bible. I could try and take it to trial and have you go to jail for larceny, but instead we settle out of court. Well, we settle for the family Bible's value, which is in my mind $300, right? And then the judge says, I don't see any reason why not. Agreed, right? Now, you have Trump who sued the government. The government, which is now fully under Trump's control, whether or not he is of his own cognitive faculties is up for much lively debate, but that's not the point. The point is the government with the government is now debating on what the settlement could be. Theoretically, he could settle this case for significantly more than $230 million. That was what the initial settlement was. That was what the initial lawsuit was. He could walk away with $230 billion. He could walk away with $2.3 trillion for all we know. And that's the point. We won't know until he starts spending money lavishly and makes sure that Times Magazine prints his face as the wealthiest person on earth or the first trillionaire or something. When the president of the United States has such overt control over the Department of Justice and is himself a factor in suing the government through the Department of Justice, the level of greed and corruption that could potentially stem from that is literally unprecedented. There is no so when we say unprecedented, we mean there is literally not a precedent for this. This has never happened. There has never been a situation in which a person who was suing the government became the president, took control over the Justice Department, and had carte blanche to write himself a blank check from our tax dollars. That has never happened before. So when the word unprecedented is used in this circumstance, it is truly unprecedented. It is breathtakingly, unmitigatingly unprecedented. So, this motherfucker makes Nixon look like a choir boy. Literally. Makes Reagan look like an angel. Makes, Andrew Jackson seem like he was just having a mild verbal confrontation with indigenous peoples. Like, Trump is single-handedly eroding our nation's democracy, and it's not even subtle. It's becoming less subtle, in fact, to the point where he's just about openly bragging about it. So, I don't know why my throat is already getting sore. That's really weird, because I haven't been talking. I don't usually talk much. Maybe that's why. I don't have the old pipers piped up and lubed. All right, so let's see if that helps. Now, part of what this stream is about is not just me losing my mind over the news. Part of what this stream is about is this right here. Me and you having a chat as what I would do in this office. And it is truly, I would like to say it goes without saying, but it needs to be said. And my first 100 days are going to be spent arresting every single member of this administration, every single member of ICE, and every single officer and soldier who obeyed these unlawful orders. I am going to be an extremely, extremely busy individual. And the worst part is, that's not even the work that needs doing. That's just to ensure that the corruption is punished and those that did it are held accountable. That's going to be part of my first 100 days. The rest of it is extracting all of this privatization, all of the grubby little mitts that have wound their way into our healthcare, education, housing, food, shelter, and water. Every single thing that capitalism has infested needs to be purged, right? And rebuilt from the ground up and made publicly owned. So I will be spending an exorbitant amount of time putting out fires and trying to build foundations for a better tomorrow. And it's ridiculous that I would even have to spend so much of my time prosecuting a former president and his entire administration, as well as an entire federal agency, for war crimes and crimes against humanity. But that is exactly what we need to be doing. There's a video for the unprecedented levels of corruption. Is that what you were saying? Okay. Is that towards the bottom? Can you just put that up top? And then after we take care of the Lia Smith video, we'll watch that next.
The body found at a farm in Cornwall yesterday has been identified as 21-year-old Lia Smith. She is the Middlebury College student who was reported missing last weekend. I'm Liz Streppa. Brian has the night off. After an autopsy today, state police confirmed Lia Smith died by suicide. Smith was last seen on her college campus last Friday.
So Lia Smith walked into the woods off of the beaten path and just decided to commit suicide? Is that what we're expected to believe? That of all the places to commit suicide and all the ways to commit suicide was to go in the forest?
And was reported missing the next day. Her disappearance was the subject of a multi-agency search in the Middlebury area. State police found her body yesterday afternoon near the knoll on Middlebury College's organic farm. If you or your loved ones need support, the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is available 24/7.
Yeah, they're not going to, there's no details whatsoever. Was there any lacerations, cuts, bruising? How did she kill herself? Capsules, hanging, slitting wrists? Because that sounds extremely suspect.
On Thursday, October 23rd, 2025, authorities in Vermont ended up searching a field near the college campus of 21-year-old Lia Smith, who had been missing since the week prior. Lia was originally reported missing by her father on October 19th, 2 days after she was last seen on campus on the 17th. Authorities immediately secured the scene and began this death investigation, preliminarily saying that they did not believe that foul play was involved and this death was not suspicious. The next day, on Friday, October 24th, a medical examiner did an autopsy on this body, where they did end up confirming that this was the body of missing 21-year-old Lia Smith and that she had passed away due to her own actions. Middlebury College President Ian Baucom did release this news today by way of a FB post. He said that he did share this news with Lia's family already and expressed his heartbreak to them. He noted that Lia was a remarkable person. She was a diver on the school's women's swimming and diving team. She was a member of the chess and Japanese clubs, as well as an articulate advocate of transgender rights. She was at Middlebury College in Vermont pursuing a double major in computer science and statistics. This is just so sad. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental...
Okay. So, she was a talented athlete and an outspoken advocate for trans rights while pursuing a pretty remarkable and impressive workload in education. And we're supposed to believe that an A-type personality like that committed suicide, and that this small town, this Sunbury or Middlebury, excuse me, in Vermont, wherever in Vermont, the sheriff who already preempted by saying, "Oh, there's no foul play." It's like, how would you know? You haven't even started looking, right? And then the coroner and the sheriff's department are all in agreement. Oh, nope, no foul play, without explaining anything to do with the autopsy, other than trust us, we wouldn't lie to you. When repeatedly law enforcement and government agencies lie to the public, especially about something like a transgender person killing themselves, or the fact that the police found no foul play in Mississippi where a black man hung themselves in an suicide from a tree. And they only started walking that back and actually started investigating when that went viral nationally and forced the department to look into it as a criminal act, which they eventually, I don't know if that investigation is still ongoing, but they actually started investigating because not only was that black man hanging from a tree, he had both of his fucking legs broken. And I don't know about you, but if I'm going to commit suicide by hanging, I'm most certainly not going to break my legs first in the process. So, her dying, a transgender woman who is a talented athlete and an advocate for trans rights and identity, is not going to commit suicide in the woods. No, nothing. Like there is absolutely foul play here. What I'm thinking is that this is a cover-up. There is no way that this is anything other than a cover-up. And what's worse is we probably lost a talent and a great mind that we otherwise would have had. Who knows what she could have done with computer science? Maybe she could have invented better robotics. She was doing statistics. Maybe she could have improved AI algorithms for determining healthcare. Who knows? Maybe she could have helped map the genome. Who knows what she could have done? But now we won't, because somebody murdered this woman and made it look like a suicide, knowing full well that the Vermont police would also readily believe that it was a suicide. So, not that I want, to put her body on display on camera and torment the grieving family by any stretch of the imagination, but I cannot, what's the autopsy report, right? Where they're because we don't know other than trust us, bro. And that bothers me because it bothers me because this is yet another innocent victim of hate that did not need to be. It's especially suspicious that they said that there was no foul play immediately. They didn't even mention her being trans in the news report. Exactly. You may need your legs to hang yourself. I hope her family further investigates. They didn't even say how she killed herself. Right. And that's usually mentioned in the news. Death by shotgun, death by hanging, death by slitting wrists. They usually, pills even, death by pills. So there's way too many things not adding up in this story. But unfortunately, we're really not going to get any more information about it than that. So Anna moved that that video up for us. So let's circle back
this
there.
Week we saw unprecedented levels of defiance without guardrails. The president who pardoned a crypto convict who helped enrich.
Okay, so this is a video covering all of the corruption that's going on. Then let's watch the individual videos instead, because those will be coming up. I don't want to do like a full. I want to cover it individually. All that to say, let's jump right into the government shutdown, which, by the way, I don't know if people know this. As the government shutdown drags into the story, some of you may not. Let me get into. Here we go. Why did Samuel Ronan get into politics in the first place? Well, let me tell you real quick. Story time. I was active duty Air Force from 2009 to 2015. Why did I get out in 2015? Because in October of 2013 was my first government shutdown, where we didn't get paid, we were expected to show up, and the people that we just deployed, we had fatalities. Not at my base, but we had fatalities during that 30-day period because the global war on terror was still right in the middle of being waged. And the reason why it was shut down was because Senator Cruz, i.e. the Zodiac Killer, shut down the government because God forbid Americans get health care from the government. And once I discovered that, once I learned the reason why we had the shutdown and what that meant and how it was going to impact all of us. Because most of the people I served with had family and little ones. And we all had bills still to pay. I mean, rent still came due. You know, the electric bill still came due. It didn't matter that the government was shut down and that was our paycheck. That didn't matter. That doesn't matter to anybody. So all of these things went through my mind, and I realized at that moment that when I served my country by enlisting, which is what I thought I was doing, serving my country, I was clearly being used and manipulated by people in government, in power, in Congress, to play games with our lives for their benefit so that they can pat themselves on the back in a debate or on a talk show saying, I did that for my constituency, the people who voted for me. And unironically, that is happening again about 12 years later. And I don't know that we've had risks of shutdown since then, but I don't think we've had a major shutdown like this or like the one that I experienced in those 12 years. So we have come full circle is the long and short of that. I'll take us back to the video.
Part of its fourth week, millions feeling the pain. Staffing issues at major airports causing gridlock in the skies. The FAA forced to slow air traffic around Chicago, Dallas, Fort Worth, Philadelphia, Jacksonville, and others as some air traffic controllers working without pay for weeks call out. And this morning fears a hunger crisis is now on the horizon.
So again, this administration's idea or version of governing is not governing, is control. Just fear and control. We're going to create a secret police. We're going to use the actual military. And then we're going to destabilize every single other facet of life and society until we can brutally subjugate the masses when they begin to riot. We are seeing air traffic being impacted by this. Every single major travel hub being impacted by this, which will impact industry generally, but also travel largely, right? Travel within the United States is coming to a screeching halt because most flights that go any major distance go through those hubs. And now air traffic controllers who make $200,000+ a year are making $0 a month and living off of a $200,000 a year lifestyle, meaning they are rapidly ending up with foreclosures, past due bills, unable to pay the mortgage, not able to pay for their vehicles, not able to pay for just regular necessities, and all because of this administration or the plan of this administration to shut down the government, to hijack the government with unlimited control, because it is an unprecedented act, but it is actually fairly genius. But it was also mentioned in Project 2025 that once you shut down the government, the only branch that is effectively running in the government would be the executive, right? Just because Congress shuts down doesn't mean that the executive can't, be an executive, and the judiciary won't necessarily be able to interfere because there's no new legislation happening, and whatever cases they come across is kind of in limbo. So by default, it is a state of emergency without needing to declare one, giving the executive branch that much more power to operate, or so Project 2025 would have you believe. What we have seen, though, is that the courts at the lower levels, lower than the Supreme Court, but at the federal level, have been interfering with the administration's attempt to further cement the coup d'etat that is happening by preventing the arbitrary firings of government employees. So, meanwhile, though, the things that are maintained that are different this time than they were in the past is that the military is getting paid, and so is ICE. Meaning, the military and the secret police are maintaining both their staffing and their funding, because eventually, especially starting in November, with food scarcity due to a lack of SNAP benefits, companies that are going to do drawdowns and mass layoffs due to not being able to afford to run business because of the lack of benefits and support systems that the government engages in, will eventually cause civil unrest. How quickly? I don't know. I hope rather quickly, because the more and sooner we can protest and over the longer course of time, the sooner we can remove this piece of garbage from office. That being said, if we do that, and we don't have a clear consensus and a clear direction, all he's going to do is bring the secret police and the military on our heads. And at that point, what are the masses going to do? And that's the question. But that's a question that we're going to find out an answer to in the very near future, because there is no end in sight for this shutdown, and there is no intent by Republicans in Congress to reopen the government by any stretch of the imagination.
SNAP food assistance, a lifeline for roughly 42 million low-income Americans, now set to run out of money by the end of the week.
It's time to call on people to donate. Absolutely. And time to call on government officials to get back to work.
The USDA posting a partisan message on its website blaming Democrats for the shutdown, saying the well has run dry, and appearing to contradict their earlier plan to potentially use available emergency funds to cover food assistance during a shutdown. In Massachusetts, where more than 1 million people will lose SNAP benefits, Democratic Governor Maura Healey pointing the finger squarely at President Trump.
President Trump has chosen to stop all SNAP benefits to Americans starting next week. You know, leadership is a choice. And sadly, President Trump has chosen to take away food from people all around this country.
And in Michigan,
which isn't a false statement to make, but the way she's delivering it is trying to be sassy and catty when she is the fucking governor of Massachusetts, and she should be speaking with brimstone and fire and talking about how Massachusetts won't stand for this. We will support you. We will back you up. When this administration, your president, your leadership refuses to do so. Again, we don't even have leadership to back up the lack of leadership that we're getting in at the federal level. Like, there is no backup plan. There are no backup leaders. There is no backup party. There is no backup groups. Because their level or what they consider leadership is being sassy and doing gotcha questions and sassy statements in press conferences.
Families also bracing for the worst. With more than 1 million SNAP recipients in this state, too, food pantries asking for donations to meet demand.
We have over 1.4 million recipients on the program here in the state of Michigan, so there will be an influx of more people coming to our food pantry lines.
On Capitol Hill, no end in sight to the stalemate. Democrats digging in, demanding Republicans negotiate on expiring Obamacare tax credits before premiums skyrocket for some 20 million Americans. Republicans largely united, saying they won't negotiate until after the government is reopened.
Veterans aren't getting services right now. The elderly aren't getting services right now. And pretty soon, needy children aren't going to eat.
And whose fucking fault is that? Literally yours. You slick fuck. This is the part that I don't like. These Republicans are saying this, like, these are the terrible things that aren't going to happen, when it is literally them. They are the cause. They are literally the ones that are doing it. Literally, Trump going out of his way to ensure that SNAP goes away. So, the audacity for me. Now, granted, there's a lot of good propaganda on the right. Fox News is parroting left, right, and center that it's the Democrats' fault. This piece of garbage is going to blame the Democrats, right? All of the Republicans are saying these are the things that are currently not happening, and it's the Democrats' fault, when it is very clearly, very objectively, the Republicans' fault, because they literally control both chambers of Congress, the House and the Senate. If there is any work to be done at all, it is on their shoulders to do it. And the fact that it's not happening, and they have the audacity to blame another party, and the other party does nothing but hold milquetoast press conferences, we're cooked, as the kids say.
Now, the Senate will return here to Washington tonight. Republicans have tried and failed 12 times to pass a bill to end this shutdown in that chamber. Meantime, the House of Representatives is on recess for the 5th straight week in a row. Speaker Johnson signaling he'll keep that chamber out until the Senate votes to reopen the government, George.
And how the hell can one person in the... Like, okay. When can the House of Reps go to recess? The House of Reps can go on recess for various lengths of time, including daily breaks, annual recess, shorter recesses. Right, pro forma sessions. House leadership. Okay, so there it is. I hate using AI overview, but I guess that is where it would come from, is House leadership. So the Speaker of the House can just indefinitely hold a recess for Congress. Like, doesn't that again seem like an abject abuse of power and authority? Like, Constitution, House of Reps, recess. Like, is that in the Constitution? Like, it's gotta be, right? So, there's a recess appointment clause. Shall have the power to fill up all vacancies that may happen during the recess of the Senate by granting commissions which shall expire at the end of their next session. Okay, so, but that's appointment. So, okay, now Trump can go ahead and unilaterally appoint people to fill vacancies without Senate confirmation. Which is, again, unprecedented power, which has also not been mentioned in the news. Like, so much shadowy shit is happening that it's crazy to me that the tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists are not having their brains explode. Because, like, this is the dark, shadowy government dealings that they have been warning about for decades. This is that right here. If you shut down Congress, the president will be like, okay, cool. Well, we're going to do these recesses, we're going to do, or these appointments, and we'll do, you know, whatever else that we can while Congress isn't doing their jobs. That's literally insane. And then apparently the president can adjourn Congress. Oh, so here we go. The president may on extraordinary occasions convene both houses or either of them, and in case of disagreement between them with respect to the time of adjournment, he may adjourn them to such time as he shall think proper. So far, the president has never exercised the power to adjourn Congress when the House and Senate cannot agree on a time to adjourn. But he can also tell them to convene. And that's another thing that's not happening. Trump could literally force the shutdown to stop by forcing them to talk. Now, I didn't know that. But that's pretty crazy when you really think about it. So this is the State of the Union. And then here's the extraordinary occasions. He shall receive ambassadors and other public ministers, and he shall take care that the laws be faithfully executed, and shall commission all the officers of the United States. Like, this is basically the president being given near total authority to operate the country by himself, or to interact on behalf of the country without approval. Because the show must go on, right? Except when everything that is happening is deliberate. Apparently, you can weaponize the Section 3 of the Article 2. That's that's wild. Okay, so the Senate is in session, but the House isn't. Okay, fair enough. Mike Johnson says that the House will be back in session after the Senate passes legislation to reopen the government, which evidently could be forced if Trump wanted to. Trump could tell Mike Johnson, you're going to convene the House of Representatives and get this shit done. Again, as president, if this were to ever happen under my administration, I would convene them. I would not allow the Congress to shut down. I would force them to stay open and in place and fucking deal with it. And if they fail to do so, I will start leveraging punishment against them, like charges and such, because this is unacceptable. You cannot just play political games with the lives of 330 million Americans. You just cannot fucking do that. And I'm not going to allow it. I fucking refuse to allow that to happen. I would put this in my stream links, but it looks like that is getting full. So you know what we'll do here? Oh, I can't just move them conveniently like that, I guess. So we'll put these in a new group called Constitutional References. And then these are all my website. So the main thing we needed there is the website, right? And now we have room again. Okay. So, breathtaking corruption. And it's not just Trump that's being corrupt or violating his office. It's also Mike Johnson. And it's also the checks and balances going the other way, which isn't occurring. Or the fact that the Senate is continuing to play chicken with 330 million Americans by trying to politicize things like, oh, I don't know, SNAP and healthcare. Like, these are things that should never be up for question. They're not rights and they're not benefits if the whims of a hateful majority can strip them away from us. We need to cement these things and protect them. And the fact that that isn't happening, and that it doesn't seem that it will be happening anytime soon, is to the detriment of every single one of us. So these next few videos are basically about that. But here's one that's should kind of hit that point home a little bit further. Federal workers are lining up to food banks because of both not being paid, getting fired, furloughed, not being hired back yet.
Stretches around the block. Many furloughed federal employees like Anthony Spite now waiting hours for help.
I have children to feed, I have a family to take care of, I have a mortgage to pay. So it's a lot of uncertainty.
The Bipartisan Policy Center reports 1.4 million civilian federal employees like Spite did not get paid today.
I never thought that I would be in this predicament where I'm in need of assistance.
Under a 2000.
I mean, that's why you get federal work. Getting a job with the federal government is supposed to be the safest employment that you could ever possibly get, except every time Republicans try and play games of power and control, it's the federal employees and the American people who suffer the most. So it's like, how do they constantly keep getting away with it? And it goes back to what I was saying about propaganda. We need to break the spine of conservative propaganda in this country, because if we don't, there is no recovering from this. There is no future where we regain our democracy if conservative propaganda is allowed to exercise itself unabated, right? Unchecked propaganda is why we have 50 or 60 million Americans who constantly vote for Republicans, who voted for MAGA, and think that it's Democrats that are harming our society, when it is very clearly the Republicans who are stripping this country, our government, and our lands for parts. To the not even always the highest bidder. Just stripping it for parts for the sake of control. Why do we need to keep paying federal taxes if the government is shut down? I mean, there will come a point where I am going to actively recommend not paying federal taxes. And quite frankly, the only reason why I don't recommend it right now is because it's mostly the end of the year. And most people have been paying taxes throughout the year anyway, and you need your tax returns, right? So I would say starting January 1st, 2026, stop paying federal taxes. Especially if the government hasn't opened up by then, which may very well be. Like, I'm actually in a point where I have to say this sentence. There is a very real possibility that the government will be shut down through to the new year and beyond. If that is the case, or rather, especially if that is the case, I definitely encourage Americans all over the country, no matter what your job is, to stop paying federal taxes. You're going to still have to pay your state and your local, but stop paying federal taxes. We can resist, we can protest in any number of ways. That's a peaceful protest. And we can make that argument that it is a collective, peaceful protest by not paying taxes to a corrupt government that is using our tax dollars to enrich themselves and take away our social benefits. So, do you keep giving them money to a cafe if they are shut down? Right. The only reason why I'd say not to start now is because people are truly dependent on those tax returns. And if there's any discrepancies on those tax returns, they will get in trouble. Whereas, if you just start a whole year without paying taxes, it'll take a whole year for any of that to be brought up. You see what I'm saying? Citizens only pay taxes once a year, and it's for the entire calendar year, January 1st through December 31st, right? So this year is almost up, and most people need their tax returns. So if you don't pay taxes starting January 1st, they won't know until January 1st, 2027 that you didn't do that. Or maybe they'll feel the pain a little sooner as they keep trying to pay the Gestapo, but then they might just turn a different cheek and be like, well, we're a fiat currency anyway, and we'll just print money into existence. But that gets into a slightly different conversation. But I would argue that not paying federal taxes now could bite you in the ass. Whereas if we all collectively stopped on January 1st, that could be a precedent setter. Unless the Democrats crack under pressure, which is just as likely. Those $230 million that Trump wants and that $300 million ballroom could feed a lot of people. It absolutely could. Never mind the $1 billion or $2 billion it's going to take to retrofit the Qatari jet that he received. So that's looking at $2.5 billion right there, which is around a quarter or a fifth. Oh, it's a sixth of the $15 billion lost from SNAP. Exactly. The ICE budget could pay for SNAP damn near, 20 times over? So yeah. Any number of things that our budget could be used for than what it currently is.
2019 law, federal workers will be reimbursed at the end of the government shutdown. But that help could...
They'll be reimbursed at the end of the government shutdown, which could be months from now. For all we know, it could be indefinite. And that's the thing. This shutdown lasting as long as it is already unprecedented. That has never happened before. And the fact that it's continuing is continuing to be unheard of. Never happened before. So what's another week? What's another month? What's another 2 or 3 or 5? Right? Eventually, this is going to start interfering with the midterm elections. And that's the point. If this continues, if the government shutdown continues into November, through November, deep into November, assume that it's not going to end at all. And again, if we're not in the streets at that time, then, folks, I don't know what to tell you, but you are giving up your constitutional rights and your democracy without a single fucking fight. And that's on you. And that's honestly pathetic. But that's where we're at right now. Every time the government shuts down, that should be an immediate call to action from every single person in this country. And the fact that it has never resulted in massive protests or uprising is, again, a failure of our own society in being that complacent.
Could still be a long way away, with Congress not in session.
How does it make you feel that members of Congress are still getting a paycheck right now?
You know, if we're not getting paid, I honestly feel that their checks should be withheld as well.
And as food banks face an influx of federal workers,
right? But again, that's the thing. Congress is still getting paid. Meanwhile, nobody else is. The president's still getting paid. The chair or the director of the FBI is still getting paid. All of these different judges and whatever else, they're still getting paid. Just not the actual workforce. But everybody with power and authority, they're still getting paid. And that should infuriate and drive people to action. And it's not. And we need to keep asking why.
Clock is ticking for millions more.
With the shutdown, I believe that we'll get double the amount, maybe even triple the amount that we see now.
Federal funding for food programs like SNAP and WIC in danger of running dry by the end of the month.
To last all the way for the next month, even to cover December, it won't. We will be starving.
Our NBC affiliate in Kansas City breaks down what that assistance looks like for the 41 million Americans who rely on the program.
I'm Megan Abundis grocery shopping in South Kansas City. This cart full of staples, some fresh produce, fresh fruit, some meat, and bread represents what the average person on SNAP benefits or food stamps can afford for an entire week. The national average benefit for a breakdown per person per week is about $46 to $74. That's what we've spent here, $48.68 for this cart full of groceries.
How you doing, ma'am? You can choose one item.
With no end to the shutdown in sight, many now preparing for what could be a long road ahead.
Now, $48 for a week's worth of groceries is pretty fucking impressive. I'm not gonna lie. Because I can't live off of that. I literally physically cannot live off of that little amount of food. That being said, if push comes to shove and I have to only eat ramen noodles to survive, then I guess I'm eating ramen noodles in order to survive. But this is the point. The SNAP benefits is $48, $76 a person to eat a week. That's not a large sum of money, but it is a large sum of money to people who are already working poor. Again, the 60% of Americans who are living in poverty, which is, I think, at $24,000, is what the federal government considers poverty. 60% of people that are working, so 60% of the workforce, 60% of the 155 million people with jobs are living below $24,000 of income, which is why they need SNAP. So that $48 makes a huge fucking difference to being literally able to eat and not. And this is 41 million Americans, which is a quarter of the workforce. Like, these statistics are callous. You shouldn't have to say that it's the quarter of a workforce or that it's the working class or it's this, that, and the other. You should just care that there are 41 million people on food benefits, many of which are children and elderly, and they aren't going to be able to eat now. That's what should be bothering you, especially if you consider yourself a Christian and claim that this country is a Christian nation. We are literally doing the exact opposite of what is in this book. By denying food stamps, we are literally not feeding the hungry. We are literally not doing that. And that was a literal quote from Jesus Christ. And that's one of the reasons why we have these links. Sermon on the Mount. Right? Blessed are the meek. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst. The merciful, peacemakers. Right? Where's the... I wonder... Which one was the feed the hungry? Let's see if we can... Is there a way to just search based on... So Matthew 25. So full chapter. Which was where? 25:37. So right here, it's in the Bible. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger, invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you? The king will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. Which is, again, from the book. It is literally from the text. So, again, to do things that are anti-Christian are now, per executive order, a crime, right? So, by not feeding the hungry, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals on his head. Although I guess that's kind of, in context, that seems a little brutal. So, what about clothe the poor? Right. Is it okay here? Maybe it was Isaiah then. So Isaiah 7. Is it not to share your food with the hungry and to provide the poor wanderer with shelter? When you see the naked, to clothe them, and not to turn away from your own flesh and blood? Then your light will break forth like the dawn, and your healing will quickly appear. Then your righteousness will go before you, and the glory of the Lord will be your rear guard. Then you will call, and the Lord will answer. You will cry for help, and he will say, here I am. Right? So this is, again, the book. Das Bibel. Right? Is literally talking constantly about feeding the hungry, clothing the poor, healing the sick. It is repeatedly this thing. And our own government, which claims to be Christian, which debating the semantics of that isn't part of this argument here, is the exact opposite. If you are literally taking food out of the mouths of children and the elderly, how is that Christ-like in the slightest sense of the word? Also, how is that benefiting your population? You are creating a crisis by doing so. And the only times leaders create crises on purpose is so that they can create solutions from that crisis, which usually involve control and authoritarianism. And we don't need more authoritarianism from this administration or from this idiotic party.
What can I do about it? But just keep pushing forward. As they say, push until something happens.
The food bank that we
went to push until something happens, but we all actually need to do something. We need to push in some way, form, or fashion.
100 people show up, all of them federal workers or government contractors. And the organizers who we spoke to said they're prepared to hold these types of weekly donation events as long as the government shutdown continues. Tom.
But see, that's pushing the buck onto the regular people who actually have empathy. Again, the government is already having this money. It already had the $15 billion. And by refusing to pay that $15 billion, now it's up to the people to supply that $15 billion that we ourselves already don't have because we're already paying more for food, more for shelter, more for transportation, gas, and utilities. It's not like we have the $15 billion either, but we will come together as a society. Because that is who we are as a people, as a species. As an animal, we function and thrive when we come together and work together. And that is the foundation of how we became where we are today, right? How we evolved from animals to a society. And yet, we always regress back to needing to take care of each other because somebody else wants to make it difficult. We have to end the cycle. Which is, again, one of the reasons why my policy positions, my platform, will 100% involve a food stipend for all Americans, as well as universal housing, education, and healthcare. And even wages, a universal income. These are all things that are on my policy platform list. So right there, voter registration, insurance, housing, income, healthcare, and education. Now, I don't have the food stipend on there because I think that might be part of the income. Right, bam. Instead of offering SNAP or similar safety net, a universal income for housing and food shall be implemented, instead utilizing the same state funding programs. Right. Additionally, the federal government will match 25% of these funds to help offset the costs. Although it seems as though that is no longer the case. I wrote this I guess I wrote this a few years ago when I was looking into safety net type stuff, and it was primarily state funded. If that's shifted since then, I will update the language here. But suffice to say, I had already taken that into consideration, that food and shelter must be something that is provided for, and income is secondary to that. Because if we are a country and we're paying taxes to said country, and that country is not at the minimum providing food and shelter and healthcare to its citizenry, then why the fuck are we a country? Like, what purpose does the country serve then? What other purpose could a government serve than, at the barest minimum, food, shelter, and healthcare? Literally being able to live in said country. So, I will make a note to update the language of that. And right, promote the general welfare. Ah, dang it. Before I can write the note, I have to close a page that I was getting a walk list out of. So, by the way, if you're in Ohio and you are running for office and you need your district walk list or voter rolls, you can get those on the Ohio Secretary of State's website. The problem is they are going to be CSV files, and they are going to be very, very large. So, correct, Anna. The whole cabinet is getting paid. Promote the general welfare. It's a function of the government. It's literally in the Constitution, right? And the general welfare of the people is always loosely interpreted as, well, that's what the military is there for. It's like, how does the military provide for the general welfare of the American people if the people can't eat and don't have affordable housing or wages to cover everything else, right? So, what was that? Income? Okay. Actually, that needs to be on that side. Okay. So, moving on. Well, we do want to say that. Oh, for crying out loud. All right. So, Energy Secretary. We haven't covered that yet. Oh, the nuclear stuff. We did cover this.
From missed paychecks to...
So, we covered the fact that the nuclear weapons staff, which consisted of 2,400 people, were stripped down to like 100 or so people for our entire nuclear arsenal. I think we covered that on Thursday, actually. So now, apparently, it's also nuclear energy. Or maybe it is going to cover that again.
Shuttered services. Americans in every corner of the country are feeling the effects of the federal government shutdown. The impacts are showing up in everyday life at airports, grocery stores, and even classrooms. Let's start with the skies. You've probably heard about the growing chaos at airports.
So there are some individual videos about the air traffic, but you know what? We're at the point where we kind of want to summarize anyway, so let's go ahead.
Delays and cancellations are piling up as TSA employees and air traffic controllers continue to work without pay. And since the shutdown began, there have been more than 215 air traffic control staffing shortages reported at FAA facilities nationwide, and that's more than 4 times the number reported this time last year. And just yesterday, Transportation Secretary warned that if the FAA determines flights cannot operate safely, well, you can expect more delays and cancellations straight ahead.
And what's crazy, too, is that all of these cancellations, from what I understand, aren't being reimbursed by the airlines because it's not their fault. So, again, it's crashing the economy. It is devastating transportation. And it is also undermining one of the key pillars of logistics in the United States, or for any country for that matter. Air, land, and sea transportation are absolute requirements to move goods. For any country, in modern times, you need air travel, you need land travel, and you need sea travel in order to maximize your goods movement. Whether that's raw materials, whether that's packages, whether that's personnel, It doesn't matter, right? Rail is obviously the best version of that because you can move an ungodly amount of stuff an ungodly amount of distance without really any interference with any of the others, which is amazing. When you have freight like semi-trucks, now you're impeding the highway system, but for the most part, you're able to move things right along. But you still need, we happen to have coasts, so you still need those in order to move goods inland or outward, right? And then everything else is through air cargo. It cannot move nearly as much as a train or as a vessel can, like a ship, right? Like a cargo freighter. But I do believe cargo planes can move about as much freight as a tractor trailer. Now, imagine you have aircraft that are moving goods that are of a timely requirement, right? Packages, mail, produce. You can't wait 6 months to ship oranges from Argentina to, well, I guess Florida grows oranges, so that might not. You get where I'm going with this. Like, we can't sustain that. So that's why there is air travel, air shipment lanes, right? And we are on the verge of shutting down our own industry, our own logistics, due to the incompetence and corruption of Republicans in the House of Representatives. For a political stunt to try and blame Democrats. But here's the flip side. The longer this lasts, the longer this shutdown lasts, and the longer Republicans keep trying to blame Democrats, the longer the exposure of truth will have a chance to come out and start becoming the mainstream narrative. Right now, CNN, a liberal news network, is not laying this on the shoulders of the administration or Congress, right? They're not blaming Republicans for this. Give it another couple weeks and they're going to start doing that because then it'll be politically expedient for them to do so. And once that narrative shift happens, it's going to be over for them. But how many people, how many millions of Americans will have suffered in the meantime? And how far back will our economy have shifted in that time? Because we are crippling our own industries. We're crippling our own manufacturing, our own agriculture, our own shipping and receiving networks. We're destroying our own travel capabilities, whether that's tourism or for business. We are destroying our own economy and our own livelihoods at every single level with every single passing minute of this shutdown. But it's a small price to pay for authoritarianism. And that's where we're at. The fascism is the point. That is the goal. The more control that this administration can leverage, the better in their opinion. And the more control they leverage, the more we are going to suffer unless we kiss the ring or bend the knee. And that's exactly why we revolted against a king 250 years ago. Because that piece of garbage was doing this shit to us as colonists 3,000 miles away and not giving us representation, overtaxing us, not listening to our complaints, forcing us to deal with these whims and these laws and these burdens. And we had enough. Or rather, there was enough people organizing the colonists to stand up and fight together. We don't have organizers anymore because every time they rise, Democrats crush those movements. So we need to start thinking outside of the red and blue box. That's the main takeaway. People on food stamps put $4.3 billion into the food retail industry last year. They support 125,000 jobs nationwide who put in $2 billion in federal taxes in 2024. And actually, it's like for every dollar spent on food stamps, it's a $1.8 return on investment. So if the program itself is $15 billion, then you can argue that it's generating about, 20, I guess 80% of that would be 12. So 12. 27 billion. So for a $15 billion program, it's generating $27 billion. But that's what they want to slash. Meanwhile, they want to increase funding to the military and the secret police, which doesn't generate a revenue. No, instead, it's a tool used to subjugate the masses, to instill fear and control over the people. And that's the problem. Now, I'll write myself a note instead of just constantly jumping back and forth to my page. But make sure there is a policy regarding Gov Shut Down or mentioned within. Okay. That was the note I wanted to make. All right, so carrying on.
And
with
it's
the video.
not just flying that is taking a hit. Transportation projects on the ground could also come to a halt. That's everything from
crazy how I just said all that, right? Crazy how I just went on like a 5-minute rant about that very thing.
Subway repair projects to major roadway construction. Without federal funding, much of that work could be paused indefinitely. Families are also feeling the strain. Many home buyers, for example, are being left in limbo, according to the National Association of Realtors.
Actually, that's something I forgot about. A lot of home lending is done through the federal home, the FHSA or FSA loans, Federal Subsidized Act or something. Whatever it is, and then, of course, USDA loans. All of these loans are for people who otherwise can't get a conventional loan because they don't have a 20% down payment for a house that is already 400% more expensive than it was 5 years ago. So I 100% forgot it. So now people are also unable to get homes, even if they would have otherwise qualified, which is going to exacerbate the homelessness crisis and then increase landlords' greed and corruption with the rental crisis. It's affecting literally every facet of life to the detriment. It is harming every aspect of American life. And it is because these ghouls, being led by Mike Johnson, are saying, doesn't matter because we're still getting paid and we're accomplishing our goals. So again, I encourage every single person to absolutely harass every single one of their representatives. Every single last one of them relentlessly to return the government back to normalcy and to pass the spending for SNAP and all these other programs that help people live in this country.
More than a third of all home buyers rely on federally backed loans. But with the shutdown, applications for programs like USDA loans have stopped entirely, putting countless deals on hold. Food assistance programs are...
Which, on the one hand, could lead to a housing market crash. But last time that happened, it also crashed the entire fucking economy vis-a-vis 2008. So, although house prices going down is always great for everybody else, if it brings the entire other economy down with us, and we know what happens when the stock market crashes, people lose their jobs. Even though it's a graph of rich people feelings don't like the idea that, people still have jobs when they are making less money. Even though it's people working that are the reason why they have money in the first place. But I digress. It would require CEOs and politicians to actually give a shit and understand the economics of society in the first place.
Are on the line as well. In just 1 week, funding could run out for programs that help nearly 42 million Americans put food on the table. About
behind.
1 in 8 Americans rely on SNAP. That's the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, better known as food stamps. And nearly 7 million pregnant women, new moms, and young children who usually get help through WIC, Women, Infants, and Children. Those programs, well, without government funding, all of those benefits could vanish.
Aren't they the first ones to scream about protecting babies and children, right? By being pro-life. They are literally advocating for starving infants and children right now. And honestly, why aren't more creators making that argument? Why aren't more elected officials making that statement? Why is that not the headlines in every news? Mike Johnson and Republicans in Congress starving women, children, and infants due to government shutdown. Like, that could dramatically change the entire public consensus overnight. But that's, again, not the purpose of these news networks. The purpose is to be in lockstep with the administration to implement control and to spew out propaganda. But that is actually a really good video idea. So, all right.
Education programs that serve some of the nation's neediest preschoolers are also at risk. Head Start programs serving about 6,500 low-income kids are already operating without funding. And the National Head Start Association warns that programs supporting another 59,000 kids could lose funding by next week.
That's insane. That's over 60,000 kids that rely on this. And if I'm not mistaken, Head Start is essentially childcare or government subsidized childcare, which means that it's because two parents are both working in the same household, or it's single parents trying to provide for their families, which means if those 60,000 children no longer have that support, that is up to another 120,000 people who, again, cannot engage in the workforce. Like, the ripple effects of shutting down the government is only going to harm our society, your neighborhoods, literally your community where you live, where you go to work, where you shop, where you go and get coffee in the morning and walk in the parks. Your home is going to be drastically impacted the longer this shutdown continues and these fundings stop. You are going to see it. If you have children in school, you're going to see it. If you work with people that are parents, you are going to see it because they're not going to be coming into work. Those kids are going to be hungry, tired, aggressive, what have you. Things are going to digress day after day after day, and it's going to accelerate. It is going to accelerate, which brings us back to the accelerationism of fascism. But hey, you know, broken record over here.
Even the courts are feeling the pinch. The judicial branch ran out of full funding on Monday, which could lead to court closures, delayed cases, and widespread disruptions in the federal system.
I'm sorry. I'm disconnected from chat. Are we still live? That's weird. Mea culpa. I misspoke earlier when I said that the Supreme Court would still be functioning and that's why they're trying to stop Trump from doing all this stuff. Nope. My bad. The judicial branch is going to run out of funding, which means the only branch that is apparently still going to function is the executive, which is the president, which would then give them unprecedented powers to operate without interruption or interference from the judicial branch, which was the only branch of government that was even attempting to interfere with this fascistic takeover of our country. So, wow, is correct, Anna. And this is why the coup is what is being discussed when we talk about this administration and this government shutdown. If the federal courts close, which they would have closed 8 days ago, right? Or maybe they're in the process of closing because the funding will run out, but whatever reserves are in place, I don't really know where the pots of money come from. They're going to stay functional until that money runs out, and then they're just going to stop coming to work as judges. I mean, the judges themselves should be able to live pretty comfortably without a paycheck for a month or two, right? But of course, it's all of the other jobs below that, like the paralegals and the regular lawyers who live paycheck to paycheck, who live an actual normal lifestyle where a month or two might not be that big of a deal, but certainly 5 or 6 months, that's going to be detrimental. Who here can just live for 6 months without an income, right? The answer is an overwhelming majority of us cannot. Well over 60% of the population doesn't have those kinds of savings. A majority of Americans don't even have $1,000 in their bank account, let alone 6 months of living expenses. So, when you start putting all these pieces together, Congress is shut down. All of these social programs and infrastructure programs are not being funded. The judicial branch is not being funded, but the executive branch is staying fully active and arguing because the executive branch is filled with billionaires and multimillionaires who don't actually need the paycheck from the federal government in the first place. So, if Hitler's Reichstag march got him full unprecedented power and a complete erosion of the Constitution in 53 days, that was because it wasn't necessary to wait all this length for the government funding to run out. Whereas, if you look at every action that this administration has been undertaking since being sworn in on January 21st, as a build-up to this moment of the government shutdown and the defunding of social programs and the defunding, most importantly, of the judicial branch, and Congress just refusing to come back and open up business, right? Then it could be surmised, it makes a lot more sense with the ransacking of the Treasury, the ransacking of the Social Security Department, the dismantling of different agencies and the reworking of all these other agencies, and the increased funding of the military and ICE. When you put all these things together, and this piece of garbage has been trying to govern as an emperor since day one, now, as soon as the Supreme Court runs out of funding, or as soon as federal judges run out of funding to actually get in his way, what's left to stop him within the wheels of government? And the answer is nothing. There is nothing, because we have already seen that the military is too fucking cowardly to do anything. The FBI is being ran by a hack, and the people within the FBI are too fucking cowardly to do anything. The U.S. Marshals are too fucking cowardly to do anything. The CIA has probably been bringing this together for the past 80 years and are drinking shots every single night, partying like there's no goddamn tomorrow. So if government has completely capitulated, then who is left to hold this administration accountable? It's a real question. That is a real honest-to-God question. What happens when no agency is willing to go against him and none of the branches are functioning to stand against him? The answer is civil uprising. We would then absolutely need to be in these fucking streets. If the Supreme Court has to close because of lack of funding, and if federal courts close down and stop running cases and this, that, the other because of lack of federal funding, and corporations can start getting away with just unmitigated acts of corruption like it was back in the 1900s or the late 1800s, and if this administration then just says, all right, laissez-faire, motherfucker, we're going to send the National Guard to every major city. We're going to put ICE in every single major fucking city. Who's going to stop them? The only people who can stop them are the American people. You and me. Because we know these governors ain't going to fucking do it. And we know that these mayors ain't going to fucking do it. So, unless they miraculously grow a spine at that point, it is literally going to fall upon our shoulders. And we need to either A, be ready for that, or B, do it preemptively and force this administration out of office so that we can hold our own Nuremberg style trials here in the United States. The states are basically running themselves now. Your state is gonna be the highest power for you now. Notice how state and local governments never shut down. Right, they never do per se, except if we were to stop paying them taxes as well. But you get the idea. I'm not arguing with you. You are 100% correct. It is now the 50 states. It's not the United States of America. It's the states of America, because we are losing that unity, for one. And for two, the federal government is not binding us together as it once was. It is trying to pit us against one another, and then it's going to try and subjugating us. And the sheer terror that, again, never happened in history, never once even came close to happening in history. The sheer terror that this should fill each and every single one of us with is beyond description. This is literally the stuff that they are going to be teaching about in history books, if there are history books in the future. These are the things that happen in fantasy novels and in movies and in TV shows when the evil, corrupt emperor or empire or king has unprecedented control after usurping all of the good leaders and rulers in the kingdom or in the society, and then starts their reign of terror. This has been repeated in history over and over and over and over again. And we are now experiencing it in the United States of America, in the year of our Lord 2025. So I really cannot stress enough how important it is to be paying attention and to be outraged. Because this headline right here, or this graphic, should literally fill every single American, regardless if you're Republican or Democrat, with absolute fear. If we don't have Congress and we don't have the courts and it's just the executive branch, that is a monarchy and all but name. That's it. That's the game. It's over at that point. He would have no obligation. Well, yeah, there is no obligation for the president to force Congress to work together. He has the authority to do that in the Constitution, but he doesn't have the obligation. Never mind the federal courts. So if this has been the game all along, then I have to retract my previous statement. It's not a matter of if the government stays shut down through the new year, but whether or not the American people will stand for it. Because what it is looking like is this right here was the main takeaway. All of the other stuff, which is still bad, early education, food assistance, home buying, transportation, infrastructure, airports, all those things are still bad. Those things are bad generally to happen. But this right here must have been the goal. This right here is the whole fucking point of shutting down the government while having forced the courts to its knees with just a blitz of all these different lawsuits and forcing them to run around ragged this entire time. This must have been the end game, the end strategy. And I don't remember if that was in Project 2025, but I'm going to assume that it was because, again, this administration or this president was clearly not smart enough to come with that on his own. Yeah, that's pretty fucking distressing.
And if you're hoping to spend your weekend exploring a national museum or park, well, you might be out of luck. All Smithsonian museums, including research centers and the National Zoo in the nation's capital, remain closed. The zoo assures that animals are being cared for, but the doors are still shut for the public. And while many national parks are still partially open, access is limited. About 9,000 park employees have been furloughed, leaving many visitor centers unstaffed, bathrooms unattended, and could mean emergency responses are delayed. This shutdown is already the second longest in U.S. history, and with no end in sight, we could see even more disruptions in the days ahead. The impacts look different depending on where you live. Check your state's official website for the latest information on how the U.S. government shutdown could be affecting you.
Now, there's another 7 minutes of this video, but I think that right there was the information that we needed the most, the judicial thing. The national parks is unfortunate, but let's be honest, that's not gonna prevent people having food on the table. That's just that's just something that we should be preserving in the first place, right? But anyway, the thing to take away from all this, I guess I overlooked the museums. This right here, this being part of the shutdown with this administration at this time in history is probably the scariest and most dangerous aspect of the shutdown, bar none. Bar absolutely fucking none. Given that this is likely the end goal, and there is no end in sight, I think we can easily argue that the fascist takeover is complete. I think we can argue that the consolidation is what is happening next. And granted, maybe we'll be surprised in the next couple of days or weeks, and the government shutdown will end. But it is not looking good. Speaking of corruption.
Breaking news, President Trump just pardoned one of the most powerful people in the crypto world. Binance founder Changpeng Zhao, who pleaded guilty to money laundering in 2023. He was sentenced to 4 months in prison after reaching a deal with the Justice Department. CNN's Elena Treen is...
So hold on. This piece of shit was sentenced to 4 months and Trump pardoned him anyway? Did the motherfucker even step foot in a prison? What the hell?
White House, Allison Morrow is in New York. Elena, what are you hearing from your White House sources about how this went down?
Yeah, well, I'm told that the president signed this pardon today, Dana, and it comes after a months-long lobbying campaign from Binance to try and secure this pardon for Zhao, who goes by CZ. Now, the president, with this pardon today, a lot of people have argued, and I know from some of my conversations with people in the White House, that over the last several months, the president started to become more sympathetic to some of the arguments that Binance was making about CZ, essentially this idea that he was being politically persecuted. And then there was also a statement that the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, sent to me regarding this story, essentially arguing that they believe, the White House, that the sentence that was given to CZ under the Biden administration was too harsh. This is what some of her statements said.
It was money laundering. Billions of dollars of money laundering. Billions of dollars of money laundering. And it was a 4-month prison sentence. This motherfucker should have been executed. Like, we have executed people for significantly less. There are people on death row for significantly less. This motherfucker was money laundering billions of dollars. And the most the Biden administration could do is 4 months, but that was too fucking harsh. Like, maybe I just need to become a lobbyist, travel to Washington, D.C., and then... try and get the ear of the president and be like, hey, and then lobby for something that we actually give a shit about. Maybe I'll just be a self-serving bastard and lobby for my game, right? I'll lobby for him to promote my game, Esoterra, right? These little cards right here. Thought I had my little card book, but I guess there's out of the box. I'm going to lobby the president to make Esoterra mandatory to play in all schools, all universities, and all workplaces, right? And that he has to buy, however many packs that would be. Like, because at this point, if you just feed this piece of shit enough bullshit and, I guess, fluff him up a little bit, play to his ego, you can get anything you fucking want. And it's disgusting. It's absolutely fucking disgusting how willingly corrupt this administration is.
said that the president had, quote, exercised his constitutional authority by issuing a pardon for Mr. Zhao, who was prosecuted by the Biden administration in their war on cryptocurrency. One thing to note as well,
Or the fact that he was money laundering.
as part of this lobbying campaign, this could potentially pave the way for Binance to continue operating in the United States, something that they weren't able to do ever since that they pleaded guilty to these money laundering charges.
So again, it goes right back to the whole crypto, self-serving, and self-enrichment schemes, which would itself be a violation of the Emoluments Clause and or money laundering, depending on how you want to look at it. You do more time for drunk driving. Like, you absolutely do more time for drunk driving. Money laundering at that level is like killing somebody while drunk driving, and that's manslaughter, for crying out loud. Ridiculous.
Very interesting to see that all coming down today and how we all got here.
And Allison, tell us about the connection between Binance and the Trump family interests in crypto.
Because that's where this is coming from.
Yeah, so as far as we know, there's no formal connection, but it has to be said Binance is by far the biggest crypto exchange, over 300 million users worldwide. And sort of informally, Binance has been very supportive of the Trump family crypto empire, which has kind of exploded into existence over the last year or so, including through their own exchange, World Liberty Financial, which issues its own coin. And there are some connections between the family and that coin in that Binance has been helping facilitate trades of World Liberty Financial's token, which all helps kind of elevate the profile of the Trump family business. And that business alone has added an estimated $5 billion worth of fortune to the Trump family net worth.
Which, it cannot be said enough that this is literally enriching himself to do these things. Don't get me wrong, I've used Binance. I had to stop using Binance because of all this. And we can even argue that I lost out on money, and that pissed me off. But hey, Binance, in of itself, is just an exchange, and if you want to play with crypto, that's the place to go, or it was. So by pardoning CZ and knowing that Binance has been elevating the Trump meme crypto empire, whatever they want to call it, it is blatantly obvious that this is just a more, what do they call that? Well, yeah, you scratch my back, I scratch yours, give and take. That has been the hallmark of this administration. Hey, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, give me bribes, and I will give you whatever it is that you want, as long as the bribe is big enough. And now Binance is like, hey, we'll make you even richer. Just pardon this guy. Sweet. I love being richer. So the insanity, the blatant corruption. Again, I have said on many, and I've shown the policies on my page several times how accountability will absolutely include seeking the death penalty for egregious acts of corruption. And this administration is absolutely getting the Nuremberg treatment.
So Allison, I just want to be clear. There's no formal connection, but this man who was pardoned has helped the Trump family make money. Is that what you're saying?
Right. The Wall Street Journal reported that representatives of the Trump family have been in talks with Binance to potentially take a stake in the company, though we have not confirmed those reports, and there's been some waffling from the White House on that front. So we don't know about a formal connection, but certainly there are informal connections, and the Trump family has become very important to the crypto world writ large.
That is extremely frustrating. What's crazy, though, is for as much influence in crypto and how much stake in crypto this administration has, the fact that Bitcoin has been floundering lately is kind of surprising, because you would think with this much blatant corruption and the potential of the United States government getting involved in it, that should be causing cryptocurrencies to skyrocket all over the place, and it's just not happening. If anything, with every single bumble and attack on the economy that this administration makes, it just causes crypto to decline further across the board, which only hurts himself. So I don't know where the end game is. It just doesn't make any sense. Speaking of corruption,
He's going to get a third term. So Trump 28. Trump is going to be president in 28, and people just ought to get accommodated with that.
So what about the 22nd Amendment?
There's many different alternatives. At the appropriate time, we'll lay out what the plan is. But there's a plan, and President Trump will be the president.
Also, I thought Steve Bannon and Trump were at odds. Are they besties again? Because that doesn't make sense to me unless this is him talking about a plan that they had devised for the first term.
There's a plan. Former White House chief strategist and OG MAGA man Steve Bannon once again claiming Donald Trump will end up with a third term. He is, of course, not alone. President Trump himself has suggested running again multiple times. He is even selling Trump 2028 merch, both online and at the White House. The demolition of the East Wing this week has also added some fuel to this fire. Would you totally renovate a house that you were about to move out of? It all comes as President Trump tries to assert new authority over elections and putting election deniers into positions of power. My panel and our Arena text chain are back.
This cannot be aired on the, this is not syndicated news, right? This lady and her sassy, laid-back, informal behavior on this video, there is no possible way that this is actually being aired on television. Am I right? Or is this actually what people are now watching on the news? This behavior is now acceptable in the news. Okay. Alrighty then. And here's the thing too about they made it up, right? They made up the plan to become the third, or to go for a third term. The reality is, the plan is to, here's the simplest plan, and they're already doing it. Shut down the government, defund every single agency that could do something about it, to include the entire judicial branch at the federal level, and then dare the states to do something about it. While he implements martial law and trains and deploys his secret police in every single state and city, because every single state and city don't have the spine to stand up to him and say no, and the military doesn't have the spine to stand up and say no, and the secret police are gleefully willing to participate in this Nazi fascism. So the plan is what we are seeing happening now, which is, again, one of the reasons why I am deeply concerned about whether or not we will even have midterm elections in 2026. Granted, that is one of the major reasons I am running as a Republican, because at the very least, he can't say, well, he was a Democrat and we're not going to give him a chance to run in the first place. As long as I'm a Republican, there's at least room for me to have my voice heard, I suppose, I hope. That is the operating theory right now. But if this continues at the way that it is continuing, and these actions, right? So this is pretty much how this is going to go. Once all federal courts are completely defunded, they have run out of money, and they are no longer seeing or hearing cases or deliberating them, that is when we're going to start seeing significant upticks in National Guard deployments and ICE deployments. We're going to just see that happen all over the place. We're also going to see the news start capitulating heavily to this administration because of the implications. If this administration can act without judicial interference by deploying the Guard and ICE into cities, that means they can deploy them into the fucking newsroom, right? Granted, most of the news networks are already compliant with this administration, but for those holdouts or like these individual programs, they're gonna get a talking to. Right. And that's kind of what they're saying, True Steel, is then I enact my plan to become king. Will it happen all at once? Probably not. But the longer the government shutdown happens and the defunding and this, that, and the other, all they have to do is roll out one, let that hit the news cycle, roll out another, hit the news cycle, then do two, let that hit the news cycle, then do two, news cycle, then three, and then three, and then four, then four. And eventually, when we're completely under the thumb of this administration and the No Kings rallies have done nothing other than march with no demands, it'll literally be left up to people like you and me to do something about it. Of course, the do something about it would be preferably a general strike with a demand for the resignation of Trump and then immediate prosecution, right? But, or the resignation of every member of Congress, too, for allowing this shit to happen in the first place, right? So, the actions that we must take are the same now as they are in the future. It's just in the future, there's going to be a lot more stormtroopers to be dealing with than there are now. And right now, we're able to push back against the stormtroopers to a greater or lesser degree. When that goes away altogether, it's literally going to be us versus the Empire. And our odds shall forever be in our favor. So True Steel is going to go True Steel and dress up as the Worm Emperor from Dune. That's, hey, I already got my lightsaber, right? And it's red. So, all joking aside, I mean, the plan between what we just watched about the government shutdown and the talks of the third term is possible if you just completely disregard the Constitution and our nation's laws. Then we will be proud rebel scum. We blew up 2 Death Stars, we can get a third. No, I agree. The thing about being rebels and blowing things up is that is considered violence or terrorism by the state. And as we have already discussed, most civilians, most citizens, most people, even soldiers, are not necessarily capable of taking life or standing firm once bullets start whizzing past their foreheads or taking out their friends. So if we can avoid armed rebellion, that would be fantastic. But that's going to be harder and harder to do the longer and longer we wait to see how this plays out. But moving back to the lady here.
Brad Todd, is President Trump going to run in 2028?
No, and he doesn't think he can.
He doesn't think he can?
He doesn't think he can.
Say more.
Yes, it's. I think that Steve Bannon, Jared Kushner once called Steve Bannon a suicide bomber in his time in the White House. And I think that that's probably, this is another effort to stir up trouble and get clicks. I do tell you that if there was a plan, I don't think they would do it in an interview with The Economist. I mean, I love The Economist. I subscribe to The Economist. But that's not where this news would break.
What do you think, Adrienne?
Look, I mean, I appreciate your optimism, and I hope you're right, but I think we have to take this seriously. I mean, I completely agree with the way you laid out at the beginning of this segment, Casey, which is, first of all, you don't do a giant overhaul, which is highly controversial, of the East Wing of the White House, completely demolishing it, if you're only going to be there for the next 3 years or so. So that feels a little, iffy there.
Maybe he plans on attending many balls there.
Yeah, perhaps. Maybe he's looking
It's a legacy.
to some Vance Rubio balls in like 2029 and 2030 in his own mind. But look, I think that's something that we should all take very seriously. It's certainly something that legal scholars, both independent and within the Democratic Party apparatus, are looking at very seriously. We've been looking at this for a very long time because what we don't want to have happen is get caught flat-footed and not have a plan in place should he actually decide to go forward with this.
I should say, as I'm covering the White House.
The plan should be dragging his orange ass out of the fucking White House, stripping him of all of his wealth, and throwing his ass in prison for treason and violating the Constitution. Again, these talking heads are giving this completely brazen and unrealistic, completely unconstitutional plan breath by debating it seriously. There's only one answer. If he does this, he needs to be drug out of office, stripped of all of his wealth, charged accordingly, and then thrown in prison until he fucking dies. Or executed by the state. One of the two. The fact that the one dude is like, that can't happen, and dismissing it, that's literally what the Germans did to Hitler right up until the point where Hitler was marching into their living rooms, shooting them in front of their wife and kids, and walking back out the door to get the next person. So, this is not the answer. This is not the response. This isn't even the right mindset to be having when talking about whether or not an individual is serious about taking a third term. Now, to that point, absolutely correct. Would you completely remodel your house if you're going to move out of it in 3 years? Especially if you are a narcissistic piece of garbage who feels entitled to everything that they have bought or paid for or created or whatever have you. In Trump's eyes, the White House is his house. It's his. It belongs to him. Just like the jet belongs to him, not the American people, right? So you're not going to spend all this money on a ballroom and the jet and not keep it if you're Donald Trump. So that should be another clue that this government shutdown is a plan in place to ensure that he can do as many more terms as he lives, right? And even if his cognitive decline worsens, that's not going to matter to anybody that's going to be in the administration, because they will govern in spite of him regardless, doing whatever it is they want to do, right? With Stephen Miller being the head of the Gestapo and Tom Holland being his underling. So, as far as I'm concerned, these things separately, right? The ballroom, the government shutdown, and the claims about the third term, on top of the extrajudicial killings and the emoluments clause violations, all of these things separately are heinous. Heinous, corrupt acts of an individual sitting in the office of the president, right? Every single one of these things individually is grounds for capital punishment, right? When you put them together, though, it can only lead to one possible outcome, and that is the official erosion of our Constitution and the establishment of an unofficial monarchy or empire under Trump. Because no other actions would dictate, or no other actions put together would lead to a different outcome. These actions would not lead to any other outcome. That's the point. That was how I word saladed that just now. Right, so the plan that the Dems have is to have debates on CNN until the Gestapo comes marching down their throats, like Nazi Germany did. The French resistance fought the Nazis for 4 long, bloody years, and in the end, they beat them. I take hope in that bit of history. I mean, so should we all. If the lowly French farmers can beat the Reich, we can too. I mean, again, I'm not arguing with you that there is strength in numbers. But what the Nazis didn't have was drones and autonomous police forces. Plus, a willing populace. I think they had the willing populace part. But they didn't have autonomous drones and the surveillance network that we have now in modern times. If we were to seriously fight back against our government, and our government seriously fought back against us, aside from the treason and the traitorous behavior of the military and every federal agent that would imply, we would lose probably handily. Or at least our morale would be broken after the first major assault where lives were lost. Like the uprising, the initial riots, that's 1,000% we'd have the upper hand. But if they actually start turning live ammunition against citizens, the amount of slaughter that our government could bring to bear against anyone, never mind the American people, is significant. Is absolutely significant. Whether or not there would be people willing to follow those orders, something I hope we don't have to find out. But at the rate we are going, it is something that we are going to find out in the relatively near future. So there's no need to continue playing this because this is just now neoliberalism. Speaking of corruption, the sponsorship list for the new
a lot
ballroom.
is still unknown about what the final ballroom will look like, other than the fact that it's going to be enormous. We now know who is paying for it. Big companies who have a lot to gain from Trump. I mean, if people don't think that he's going to be looking at this list, well, got another bridge to sell you. There's also a number of high-profile crypto investors and other close allies of Trump. We'll just break down some of these names down. Amazon is on the list. Obviously, Amazon's forked out a reported $40 million to air a Melania Trump documentary. Apple is also on the list. CEO Tim Cook there, remember, memorably presented Trump with that 24-karat gold and glass statue. And then there are a lot of crypto connections on the donor list. As Dan Alexander of Forbes reported in June, so already back in June, more than half of Trump's net worth was tied to his crypto ventures, 60%. And the largest U.S. crypto exchange, Coinbase, on the list of donors for the ballroom. Its CEO is someone who has been singled out by Trump.
I also want to recognize some of the countless industry leaders here today, including Brian Armstrong.
Parent company of Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg, the executive there, was seated right next to Trump at his dinner with tech leaders. And he had this to say.
Like, how much more evidence of corruption do you need to turn against this piece of garbage? Call your congressmen, call your senators, and demand not just his impeachment, right? Because at this point, impeaching him is not even close to what, like, forcibly remove him from office and charge him with treason. Like betraying the Constitution and the American people. There is more industry leader, tech, and this, that, and the other that have the ear of the president than any citizen, than any member of Congress, right? This is absolutely insane. And of course, goes par for the course with the way this administration has been acting since day one, allowing Elon Musk to run wild in the fucking treasury.
Say about the president last July.
Seeing Donald Trump get up after getting shot in the face and pump his fist in the air with the American flag is one of the most badass things I've ever seen in my life.
That's another reason why that assassination attempt was absolutely a false flag to garner support and sympathy for Trump, because it works on gullible fucking idiots like this. Even if he wasn't a gullible idiot, he has this vested self-interest in believing that bullshit because it's going to make him richer and more influential.
Other companies include Micron Technology, Microsoft, and then there's a company called Ripple. If you haven't heard of it, it is a big crypto company, a company, in fact, that has been under investigation by the SEC for years. But suddenly, in March of this year, the SEC dropped its case. The CEO wrote at the time, "This is it, the moment we've been waiting for. The SEC will drop its appeal, a resounding victory for Ripple, for crypto, every way you look at it." Well, of course, that was during the Trump administration. And then there's the individuals. You know, some of these names catch your attention. The Lutnick family, that, of course, is the family of the Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. Lutnick has backed Trump's crypto policies wholeheartedly.
We're using the blockchain. We're using Bitcoin. We're going to use digital assets to pound forward. And Donald Trump is leading the way.
And the list continues. Kelly Loeffler among them and her husband.
So that whole list, just blanket, needs to be charged with, what is that called? Is it extortion? Is it extortion? Because if it's just bribery, it would be bribery, wouldn't it? But it's also collusion, because it's not like, okay, so bribery. But is it bribery if the person being bribed is asking for the bribe in the first place? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what kills me about this. Like, The crimes that are being committed are just so over the top, just so cartoonishly corrupt, that it's like they need new names. Bribery doesn't even feel like that's appropriate because it is so blatant and overt. Okay, so Trump is extorting them, and they're bribing him, and round we go. Meanwhile, the Constitution just gets used as toilet paper left, right, and center. Something to do with Pence. This should be interesting. We haven't heard about Pence in a long fucking time.
President Trump is urging the Department of Justice to investigate the 2020 election with as much gusto as its probe into illegal gambling. On a social media post, he repeats baseless claims the election was rigged, saying, quote, "What's worse, the NBA players cheating at cards and probably much else, or the Democrats cheating on elections?" This comes as we're learning new details from the special counsel's investigation, suggesting President Trump understood he lost the 2020 election. It's just part of the new book, Retribution, Donald Trump and the Campaign That Changed America, by our chief Washington correspondent, John Karl. And John is here now to tell us more about it. John, first of all, congrats on the book. I know these are all a labor of love, and you always do such a great job on them. So the special counsel was planning to use, you say, a forensic copy of President Trump's phone in this investigation about the violence that unfolded on January 6th. What argument was he looking to make with that evidence?
So first of all, what I did in the book was to tell the story of Trump's return to the White House. Part of it was his battle against the special counsel. And after he won the election, the special counsel had to wrap up that investigation, knowing Jack Smith, that he was going to be fired as soon as Donald Trump came back, and that there was no way that this was going to go forward. There's no way to prosecute a sitting president. So I got some insight into...
Okay, but see, it's that sentence right there. There's no way to prosecute a sitting president. Yes, there is. Because, again, the Justice Department and the FBI do not serve the president directly. Granted, that's what it's all said. I serve at the pleasure of the president. But, like, realistically, they're congressional bodies that were elected into existence. So if they fall under any jurisdiction whatsoever, it's Congress, not the president, even if it is the president who appoints people into those various positions. But this is why I guess it was only a matter of time for somebody to get elected to president, to test all of these checks and balances, and to test these norms and these taboos, and see how far they can push the systems and the laws of this country. And evidently it was this administration to do it. Even though he tried in the first administration and had a lot of pushback, apparently another 4 years of prep was all it took to get to where we are today.
What they were doing with their final reports. One part of the final report came out. The part on classified documents, was buried forever for history. In terms of the phone you asked, this is fascinating. So they had a copy of Trump's phone. By the way, the image on Trump's phone, which I have seen, is Donald Trump. It's Trump himself looking back at Trump with a MAGA hat and giving a thumbs up. So every time Trump looked at his phone, he saw himself. Saw himself looking back, giving him a thumbs up.
Well, that's great that he's a narcissist, but like, bro, this is not how you paint a picture of a corrupt... I mean, I don't...
See what he was doing while the attack on the Capitol was unfolding. Who he was, how he was communicating, what he was checking, and they were able to demonstrate that Donald Trump was fully aware of what was happening, fully following the minute-by-minute events up on the Capitol.
You also obtained some of then Vice President Mike Pence's notes over the course of leading up to January 6th. And you say in their last conversation, Trump actually called Pence a wimp?
Yeah, well, what he said to him, and these are the extemporaneous notes that Pence took, and by the way, it's fascinating to look at them, and never before seen. So the January 6th committee never got this. It's never been made public. Here you're going to see him on the screen. It's on his day timer, so it's on the calendar that he had on his desk, January 6th, it says at the top. And it said, one of the things it says, I made a big mistake 5 years ago. In other words, when he chose Pence as his running mate, he says, you will go down as a wimp. if you don't help me overturn the election. And there's one part of the notes where it looks like Pence has actually drawn a mad face emoji or a sad face emoji. It's the circle part. Look at that. And that's where he quotes Trump as saying, "You listen to the wrong people." And Pence writes that he says back, "I listen to my heart and my mind." Just a fascinating insight into one of the most consequential moments in recent history, the morning of January 6th.
And he used to...
Okay. Honestly, I can't with these fuckers. You're talking about a coup d'etat. You're talking about a president insulting a vice president, and then the vice president talking about his fucking feelings and making a mistake and calling it fascinating. About a president who then got reelected, which is only the second time that a president succeeded their successor, who is now engaging in an even more direct and overt coup d'etat, takeover of government, and all you can muster is, ooh, that's fascinating? Bruh, here's a boot for you. It's nice and black. It has all these nice little ridges for you. Jesus Christ. I cannot with this shit. How are you going to be this blasé about an actual major crime, treason against your fucking country, and you're going to talk about it as if it was like, wow, we just discovered a way to do quantum teleportation with data, which we have, and that's actually exciting. I just don't fucking get it. Yeah, if this is what a free press looks like, then we're fucked. Not cooked, not whatever the other word is kids use nowadays. We are fucked. Unbelievable. I don't even know what to say to that. Speaking of that situation, Jack Smith.
A letter sent by the counsel for the former special counsel, Jack Smith, asking Congress if he can testify in an open hearing. Joining our panel here in the arena, CNN senior law enforcement analyst Andrew McCabe. He previously served as deputy FBI director. Andy McCabe, I'd like to start with you on this because the focus here, according to this letter, is this question of they're known as toll records. For Americans, it's if you open up your cell phone bill and you'll see a list of all the people you've called. Was it incoming? Was it outgoing? What was the number? And this is a tool that's frequently used in criminal investigations. This letter from Jack Smith outlines a number of other times that this was purportedly used against members of Congress, including some Democratic members of Congress.
Can you get to the fucking point?
I'm curious what it says to you that Jack Smith is reaching out and proactively saying, the things you're saying about me in public are not true, and I want to come and defend myself in public.
I think it's really important. I think it's important that he's speaking up. And I think it's important that he's speaking up in a way to kind of demystify what has been grossly misrepresented to the American people by the senators in that testimony we saw a few weeks ago. As you mentioned, Casey, toll records are a very rudimentary kind of first step investigative technique in many, almost all investigations. And it's typically done early in investigation when you have an allegation and you're trying to vet an allegation to even see if there's something worth investigating. So if someone comes to you, let's say a situation like this, if someone makes an allegation that they have information that the president contacted a particular senator in the process of trying to stall the Congress's work on certifying the election. One way to vet that information would be to get toll records to see if there was actually telephonic contact between those people. And after you've proved that, if there's no contact, then you know not to go down that investigative avenue. If there is contact, then there are, of course.
Okay. Not at all the direction I thought this video was going, and that's boring me, and I am a political junkie. So, the long story short is Jack Smith is seeking to defend himself in public in front of Congress because Congress, i.e. Republicans, are going out of their way to smear this guy, which is itself a crime. Isn't that libel or slander? One of them, slander is when it's verbal, libel is when it's written, right? Which is funny because it's the same crime, but it matters if it was written versus spoken. But either which way, Republicans in Congress are slandering or libeling Jack Smith so badly, he's like, hey, I will straight up testify because y'all are fucking lying about this shit. And again, the precedent for this, it should be, as he was describing, is that Congress is supposed to be facilitating the investigation through these testimonies and all this other stuff, not just blatantly saying nonsense out of their ass to try and turn public opinion against them before it even comes to a testimony. That's the problem. Libel refers to written... Oh, I was right. While slander to spoken. I was absolutely correct. But it was defamation. Got you. Okay. Thank you for that. So, let's see if this is...
New York Attorney General Letitia James in federal court today pleading not guilty to 2 criminal counts against her following a very public, very persistent demands from President Donald Trump that she be prosecuted.
Letitia James is a dirty cop.
Crooked AG, Letitia James.
Letitia James from New York. This is another real Lola. Letitia James is totally controlled by Washington. Letitia Peekaboo James, Peekaboo. She's controlled. She's got serious Trump derangement syndrome. Letitia James, a real bad one.
The 67-year-old, 67th New York AG, now vowing to fight and not doing it alone. As we come on the air this afternoon, a new reminder of the Shakespearean proverb that politics can and does, in fact, make for strange bedfellows. Lawyers for Letitia James now telling the court they're teaming up with James Comey in an event to get both of their criminal cases thrown out, combining motions to disqualify President Trump's hand-picked U.S. attorney in the case, arguing that her appointment was illegal. And the new duo of James and James could expand soon, or maybe if and when the Trump Justice Department moves forward with other cases against some of the president's high-profile critics.
There's no fear today. No fear.
I think it's worth noting that there are this many high-profile people that this president is actively investigating, calling to investigate, and indicting through political persecution. Purely political reasons. And that he is handpicking prosecutors to do this. Again, corruption is corruption, right? But it is worth mentioning that there is no stone of corruption that he has left unturned. There is nothing he has not done that is a crime in his position as president that he isn't engaging in, but repeatedly blaming or accusing others of doing. That's disturbing as fuck. And these are some of his own former advisors. And I thought this was Tucker Carlson. My bad. And then George Soros, which is, again, who even is George Soros? He's 95 years old. Granted, he was definitely alive and well in the World War II. He's a billionaire. And wow, okay, so he's donated more than $32 billion. Okay, wow. I didn't know that he was that wealthy. Okay. So, this is the George Soros, though, that they're always talking about. His $128.5 million to support the Democrats in an election cycle. Which, granted, shouldn't that be violating donation laws anyway? But let's move on from that. How much have billionaires personally contributed to politics? List. Because I imagine there'll be a number. So, oh, this is just saying that. So, okay, Amazon donated $1 million to fund the inauguration. He spent more than $250 million. So that would be $250 million, which is way more than 100. That's double. That is damn near double. But George Soros is evil for being Hungarian? No, he's Jewish, right? That's the thing. Can we fucking open the new tab? No? Is a non-observant Jewish family. So, okay. It's anti-Semitism and because it isn't Zionist in nature. That's great to know, I suppose. He won the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2025? Under what? The Biden administration? Well, I guess it would have to... What? Okay, so they just happened to pick that picture. Anyway, suffice to say, they want to point fingers at George Soros, and Musk did double the amount. And nobody wants to point fingers at that in any sense of the word. And that is still only a fraction of the billions of dollars that both of them had. Or have, or whatever. It's just mind-boggling. It is truly mind-boggling. And honestly, that's pretty much the only billionaire that is noteworthy when it comes to Democrats. Because Taylor Swift might be a billionaire, but she has $1 billion. And I think... What other billionaires have donated to Democrats? Like, how many billionaires have donated to Democrats? I guess this is where that 80 or 100 or something comes from. Oh, that was this article thing. Well, so that was still Republicans. Bill Gates. Oh, I forgot about Gates. But nobody wants to talk about that, right? So $50 million. Michael Bloomberg, who donated to himself $100 million, and then Warren Buffett during the 2016 stage. So, like, there's like 3 Democrats and literally everybody else. Okay, I guess there's only 3 Republicans in this article. But most other billionaires are Republicans, like the Koch brothers and so on and so forth. It's just... It is frustrating, folks. It is definitely frustrating. All right. Sorry, went down a rabbit hole there. They say that he was a Nazi collaborator during the Holocaust, but he was a child. Literally a child. He was 15 to 19 years old. And how could he be a collaborator at that point, right? I mean, I guess technically it's feasible, but considering his family was Jewish, then no. Like there's that would be again like Latinos trying to join ICE. Eventually, those Latinos in ICE are going to be targeted by ICE. All right. Went off on a tangent there. But, so, slightly different than politics, but still very much an outcome of laws and legislation passed. this story might be very familiar to many of you. The teen that was handcuffed after AI system mistakes bag of chips for a gun. And if this is the video of the kid, then of course it was a black guy, a black kid that was mistaken for having a gun, because cops always mistake the black people that they murder with having guns, even if it's a cell phone, a pipe, a book, a guitar. What was one of the most... A hot dog. A hot dog looks like a gun now. So, not shocking at all.
Turn around. Get down on your knees. Keep your hands up. Put your hands behind your bed.
With guns drawn, Baltimore County Police surround this group of high school football players after an AI gun detection system alerted school officials that one student had a weapon.
Is this because we stay on campus school?
No, I was thinking in a second.
The teens handcuffed in question.
Oh, notice how there was no... Now, I'll tell you in a second. No, motherfucker, your job as an officer is to utilize due process. You are being detained for this reason. That is why you are being handcuffed. Not, I'll tell you later. Not, it's none of your fucking business. Not, shut up or I'll shoot you. It's, yes, this is why you are being detained. That is the actual law. That is the whole point of due process. Christ, and it's a bunch of these kids.
First thing I was wondering was, am I about to die? Because they had guns pointing at me, and it was just, it's scary. I was scared.
The Omnilink system detected
which
that.
goes back to the whole thing that police exist to terrorize communities of color.
The alleged gun into Kai Allen's pocket.
Do you have a gun on you?
No. What?
Do you have anything blue that looks like a gun?
No.
Is your phone blue? Can I grab it real quick?
Yeah, you can grab it. It's wet. I don't have nothing blue on me.
Nothing?
No, only my shoes.
Where did this call come from? What?
It's the Omni alert.
Oh, so the blue phone could trick an AI system into thinking it's a gun? No? This is a prop and it's completely black. What is this, a fucking guitar? Is AI gonna see this and think guitar? Like, how does... Okay, even better. Even better. How does this shape match this shape? Like, fuck off with this nonsense.
A bag or something.
After taking a closer look,
I mean, there's bags of chips and
blue. Well, I mean, that's what it looks like right here.
police realized it was an empty bag of Doritos.
They showed me a picture. I was just holding a Doritos bag like this. It was two hands in and one hand out and one finger out. And it was like, they said it looked like a gun.
One officer's frustration.
In what fucking universe does a bag of Doritos with your fingers in it look like a gun? Oh, because it made this shape with your fingers? This is exactly why, A, we need to defund police and completely overhaul the way law enforcement functions in this country. Number one, this is evidence. Number two, get AI out of everything. Get it out of anything that is public facing, especially law enforcement. Because those kids might have been killed by even more racist and brutal cops. Or ICE agents, for that matter. If ICE starts using AI recognition systems when going on raids, we're going to see a lot of bodies piling up. They should sue the PD, they should sue the state, and they should sue the AI company, and they should sue everything under the sun that they can. Each of these kids. Because this is beyond the pale. AI is making us even more unsafe. And quite frankly, I'm beginning to wonder if that was the point too. Because AI is making us dumber. It has been proven that we are becoming less able to critically think due to AI, or at least those who use AI. And then this shit right here is making it extremely unsafe. And students are using AI to cheat in school. And then they graduate school and don't know how to do anything other than use AI, which is also statistically wrong. We're fucked. And we are only hurting ourselves as a society in the present and in the future by allowing AI to continue like this.
Captured on his body cam.
On your words.
School and gun involved, we take it very seriously. So I appreciate you guys' cooperation and transparency with us.
OmniAlert says the system operated as designed, detecting a possible threat, routing it for human review, and ensuring rapid, informed decision-making. The school district...
Well, evidently there was no review because these cops just saw gun and then went after these kids. Which again goes to the training of police and the fact that they need to... their interaction and their behavior needs to be fundamentally overhauled. And again, I love to show that the federalization thing, because that is one of the number one things that we need to do in this country. It is 100% one of the most important things that we need to do. And I want to make sure that failure to abide by those things results in severe punishments. Severe punishments. Oh, I didn't add. I still need to add. Oh, right here. With the seeking of the death penalty. We need to make cops afraid of breaking the law and violating people's rights. We need to make it a life or death situation anytime they were to interact with any citizen, because they have been murdering people with impunity and getting away with it, terrorizing kids on campuses because of fucking Dorito bags. This is unfucking acceptable. Unacceptable. And then, of course, the company's like, well, we're not liable because it did what it was supposed to do. It's the cops' faults for just taking it without actually reviewing it, which makes everybody unsafe. If the corporation isn't going to be held accountable and the cops are going to investigate themselves and found that nothing was wrong, then these black students, black people generally, brown people generally, are just going to be targeted by these systems and cops with even more impunity. But they're going to be using justification. So, that brings us to the next video, which is, I guess, a little less dystopian, but no less frustrating.
We're also following breaking news out of the tech world tonight that you may have heard about. Amazon set to announce massive layoffs. As many as 30,000 corporate job cuts. That, according to Reuters. CNBC reporting it will be the largest cuts in the company's history. NBC's Christine Romans joins us now on set. Christine, so great to see you and talk to you. This is a huge headline, and it's sort of wild because it's one of the biggest companies in the world. And if they're cutting 30,000 people, what does that say for other companies across the country?
And they're cutting things like advertising and HR and cloud. They're cutting white-collar jobs. 10% of their corporate office jobs here is what these reports are. Amazon, of course, not commenting, but these are supposed to start tomorrow. These pink slips will start tomorrow. And I think it shows you that using AI for cost cutting is essentially the holy grail for these big companies. They want to use artificial intelligence to figure out how to take out layers in the office, how to make people more productive, and how to move some of this work to other functions.
Yeah. And here's the problem with that. Right. You even have less people paying taxes. Not only, though, is AI a very inefficient technology outright. Doesn't matter if it's big tech that's using it. Big tech just nearly killed themselves with the AWS outage, where people who had their $8,000 beds were woken up due to overheating or being squished, right? So even the tech people who use the tech are suffering from the tech, but they're still using the tech as an excuse to fire people. Granted, most of the companies that do end up having to hire people back because the tech, again, doesn't work. Now, what are they firing? They're firing HR and other similar employee-focused positions and a couple of others that are just typical white-collar stuff. And that's, again, so that there is no liability, that you can't file grievances in the warehouse, that you can't demand raises or even seek promotions or this, that, and the other, because HR won't be there to work with you. You'll have to talk to a chatbot who may or may not even be able to help you because it may or may not be able to access the information, which will once again be by design. And this was a thing that was discussed in the 70s or the 80s by IBM. A machine cannot be held accountable, and therefore it should never make management decisions. And yet now, 50 to 40 years later, machines are making management decisions and aren't being held accountable. We cannot continue this cycle, or we are going to seriously end up in the Elysium timeline, right? Where the rich escape Earth and everybody else is stuck with what's left, right? Automation and AI should be revolutionizing labor and lifestyles for every single human being on Earth. It should be getting us away from laboring in the fields, laboring in the factories, and being able to enjoy our passions, pursuing knowledge, whatever have you. But instead, what it's doing is causing people to fall into poverty, into homelessness, into desperation, while the rich continue to fucking get richer and the poor become starving masses. If we're going to become an automated society with robotics and AI, but we aren't going to take care of the people whose jobs are being replaced, then we are literally creating a massive crisis that is going to be controlled through violence. Because that is the solution that these groups, whether that's corporations or this administration, are looking at. Violent suppression of dissent. We cannot sustain ourselves as a country like this. Which is why AI and automation must result in people being liberated from work, from financial hardship. And of course, you have Gates saying, well, we'll just tax the robots. So you're going to tax the robots that are owned by the companies. Okay, but if it's an AI, are you going to tax the AI? Right? And how are you going to tax an AI? It doesn't produce anything. So what? The companies, instead of paying $80,000 a year for HR, are going to pay $30,000 for the AI? One AI to do 30,000 jobs? Even if you paid the AI $80,000, if it's only one AI being paid and the other 80,000 people are off the payroll, then you're still only taxing one person versus the 30,000, so the taxes still aren't there. So then you're going to have to tax the companies, which are already refusing to pay taxes by lobbying Congress to shut down so that they don't have to be held accountable. Like, that does not add up. And this bitch is like, yeah, this is just a smart business move. No, motherfucker, this is how you kill a country.
AI functions.
And we were just talking about AWS, I think last week with your colleague Brian Chung here. Explain to our viewers, this is sort of scary. We don't want to scare people out there, but Amazon is a tech company. They're
Welcome back in
a
bone
AI.
apple
We just
teeth.
had Vicky Wynn here talking about AI in the stock rooms. This is different, though, because they have the technology to do AWS, but they're also cutting through AI. And it's kind of putting those two ideas together, right?
Yeah, and it's really interesting to me. They grew like gangbusters through the pandemic, added all these workers, and then realized they had too many workers. And they cut 27,000. I think in 2022, they had a huge downsizing. And this is on top of that. This is even bigger than that, Tom, if it's indeed 30,000 jobs.
And it's your understanding it's because of AI, they're figuring out jobs that AI can take, some of them?
They're cutting costs. Andy Jassy, the CEO this summer, in a memo to employees in June, said they would do everything and they would use any technology they could to cut costs. And cutting costs is cutting HR, it's cutting advertising, it's cutting some of these places where you can do it better with technology and AI.
Maybe happening.
Which you really can't. So this group right here, the top story, I guess, if that's what this is, NBC News' Christine Romans reports on the expected layoffs. So she's a corporate hack. She is a capitalist shill. And I hope when the starving masses come for her, she screams, but it was for the shareholders. It was the smart business move to make as she is being beaten alive in the streets. Because what a sociopathic thing to say. Again, Nobody, not in news, not in government, not in... how many even influencers are talking about this and condemning it and talking about it in a way that needs to be discussed, that people can digest and be like, this is not good. This is going to detrimentally harm each and every single person in this country if this continues. How many creators are talking about it? That's what I would like to know. Maybe Hassan? Annika Spespacin? I don't fucking know. I worked for Amazon while I was in between jobs and AWS went down, which is why I didn't have to deliver a lot that day. Well, that's the thing, right? Amazon is rapidly becoming one of the nation's largest employers, much like Walmart, and they're leading the charge in cutting jobs. Like, that's not okay. That's not sustainable. That's not the way any of this should be. And the fact that it's all for cutting costs and saving the shareholders money just proves that this system is never going to work for humanity, for a society, for a country. If we continue to allow corporations to dictate economic ebbs and flows and the job market, we are going to die horribly. And we're going to be forced into extreme crises. And if the response is going to be the secret police and the military, we're doubly fucked. Because if we have to rely on the conscience of hateful individuals to not pull a trigger against their fellow man, when we are seeing them gleefully following these orders, especially when it's against brown people, we're cooked. That's all there is to it. Okay, so Hassan's talking about it. So that's one. One who doesn't even have a following that can even come close to matching one of the mainstream networks. That's a fucking problem. I dare not say what they need on an Amazon website. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm talking about general strikes and revolutions, so you can't be saying much worse than me at this point. Wild take by Christine Romans. Yeah, and she's wearing probably $30,000 worth of jewelry too. What a bitch. What an absolutely bitch. All right. This should be mildly entertaining.
Tonight, a disturbing new threat discovered by a scrolling TikTok user. A post that offered tens of thousands of dollars to kill Attorney General Pam Bondi. A 29-year-old Minnesota man, Tyler Maxon Avalos, now faces one federal charge for transmitting that threat that investigators tracked on social media. According to the FBI, a TikTok post linked to Avalos read in part, "Wanted Pam Bondi, preferably dead," and referred to a reward of $45,000. Court documents include an image, which we are not showing, with a photo of Bondi with a sniper scope red dot on Bondi's forehead. TikTok, Google, and Comcast, parent company of NBC, helped the FBI trace the suspect, according to the affidavit, which also states Avalos has a criminal history, convicted of stalking and domestic battery. Bondi declined comment, but has pledged the DOJ will root out threats in this heated environment.
We cannot allow this political violence to continue any longer.
This suspect...
You mean the political violence that you spend every single day behind that podium advocating for every single day and defending every single fucking day? Again, offering a reward to kill members of the administration, that's crass, for one. For two, it's only going to exacerbate the issues and allow the martial law, the threats to the administration and members of the administration to become more real, and to allow martial law to come that much sooner to our homes and to our cities. That being said, the emphasis on this guy and this $45,000, and the fact that they keep, every time they brought up the different companies, how they also mentioned like NPC's sister company and affiliate. It's like, can you stop being a capitalist shill for 5 seconds? You're trying to present this terrifying story of a man on social media ordering the hit of Pam Bondi from social media, and you can't stop promoting your own sponsors and partners in that fucking report? How broken, like how truly broken are we as a society when journalists cannot stop promoting other capitalist interests during a report where there was a credible threat against the press secretary or speaker of the, I don't know what the fuck her goddamn title is, but insane, right? Like, is it just me, or am I just, you know, going over the top here? Sonia Massey, who was murdered by a cop, and this is, I guess, his trial.
Also tonight, the former Illinois deputy accused of killing a black woman in her own home tells a jury today, taking the stand in his own defense, that he felt the only weapon that was appropriate was his pistol.
Sonia Massey, who was killed after calling for help from the police, who was cooking and turning off boiling water, killed her on site, and is arguing that that was his only option. And allegedly, again, what was the phrasing she used?
Also tonight, the former Illinois deputy accused of killing a black woman.
Accused? There is literal body cam footage showing him killing her. There is no accusation. He is guilty. He fucking did it. And she was not armed. She was obviously in distress. And you fucking murdered her. Again, why the phrasing is constantly being used this way is beyond me, but it is infuriating.
In her own home, tells a jury today, taking the stand in his own defense, that he felt the only weapon that was appropriate was his pistol. To respond to the threat he says he felt from Sonia Massey. Sean Grayson, you see him in court sketches there. Kind of a surprise move today, taking the stand to testify. Remember, Massey called 911 late one night last year, worried about a prowler. Body cameras captured her, this video, in her own home, picking up a pot of boiling water and telling Grayson, "I rebuke you," in her words, "in the name of Jesus." Grayson then yells at Massey to drop the pot. Seconds later, fires 3 shots. Prosecutors say Massey was never a real threat to Grayson, arguing he'd gotten frustrated with her throughout the night. But Grayson's lawyer says his client's actions were reasonable under the circumstances. Grayson has
no extrajudicial murder by anyone is never justified under the circumstances. If cops are trained to deal with threats, then a panicking woman with boiling water is not justified. Guess what? Even if she threw that boiling water at you, there was how much distance from the boiling water? It was a solid 8 feet. So she flings the pot at you. You sidestep it. Okay, so if she flings it in an arc, you can duck it, right? Any number of things. Well, an officer shouldn't have to duck a boiling pot of water. Again, was she throwing it? No, she said, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus," because she was fucking panicking. Did she pick up the pan? Or even crazy thought, "Ma'am, step away from the pan. You just made me extremely nervous." Not immediately bang, bang, bang. That's not how that fucking works. Not sorry. He killed her after she put the water down. Oh, even better. Even better. She put the water down, then he killed her, which would be even less justification.
Not guilty to 3 counts of first-degree murder. I want to bring in Maggie Vesper for us. A lot of questions for Grayson today on the stand, as he again took the stand here about why he didn't use a taser. What was the reasoning there?
Yeah, and these questions, Hallie will note, were from his attorneys. So clearly this was something they wanted to get out in front of the jury. Like, why didn't you use a less lethal weapon? And he basically said, listen, the way a taser works, you have to get the prongs onto the person's skin, which he worried getting that close, he would be hit with the boiling water, which he said was made him afraid of great bodily harm. And then he also said during the testimony, tasers don't work on everyone. His team didn't really elaborate there, but it basically said that he believed that his gun was his only option. If we can pull up the graphic of some of the testimony here, he said, I took it as a threat, meaning when Massey picked up that pot of boiling water and, as you said, told him, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. His attorney kind of then going in on this point, he said, the only thing that you had that you perceived could stop the threat was your duty weapon, meaning your gun. Grayson said yes. And then he said, I approached, meaning took steps toward Massey to make sure that she wasn't going to come out with another weapon like a knife or a gun, because, Hallie, that was another big point of contention. They actually had experts from both sides on the stand testifying about police de-escalation tactics.
Which clearly were not present.
He shouldn't have walked toward her with his gun, that he kind of like escalated everything and made this all the more dramatic. We had experts for the defense today saying, no, that is a tactic, showing you have the potential to use
he was in the fucking
kind of
living room.
Someone to calm down.
So quite frankly, there is no way in which he was in danger from that water, even if she did chuck it at him. There was no danger. And honestly, after she chucked it at him, at that point, okay, taser time, baby, let's go. Still not grounds for a gun. Certainly not to shoot to kill. I probably shouldn't have watched this video when I'm already hyped up, but this is racism. This is pure unmitigated racism. He wanted to murder this woman. And he had the badge and the gun to do it, and the knowledge that even if he murdered this person, that there would be enough legal defense on his side to protect him, no matter what the justification was. It's infuriating how much power cops have in this country, and is indicative to the direction this country has been taking all along. Right. He knows that he will get away with it, or at the very least, he's going to suffer significantly less backlash than if it was any other person or circumstance. Yeah, no, that's what you walked into. He wanted to murder this woman because he was getting frustrated and panicked when she herself was panicking because he was pointing a gun at her.
While you're showing that is a reasonable option in some cases. So a lot of back and forth. You can see that use of force analyst today kind of laying that out for the defense.
Yeah, and he immediately has his hand on his hip.
Clearly, Hallie, Grayson, and his team wanted him to talk about firsthand, which is why he pulled that surprise move and took the stand today.
And it's also interesting because this trial, it feels like, has moved along at lightning speed here.
No, it's not interesting. It's fucking disturbing.
Closings maybe tomorrow?
They might be first thing in the morning. That appears to be the tentative plan, according to the judge, as it stands right now. Both sides say they're ready to get at this, so basically 9 a.m. local time. But you're right. Initially, we were told this could last up to 2 weeks. Then the judge last week said they thought they would wrap on Wednesday, meaning the day after tomorrow. You can see the courtroom schedules. Everybody's really been moving along at a decent clip. We've also had protests outside the courthouse. Again, this is in Peoria, Illinois, about an hour north of Springfield, where the shooting happened. So the judge, the defense, the prosecution, everyone involved is really trying to keep this tight, keep the attention on.
Why is this happening an hour away from where the shooting fucking occurred? Again, can we just not be corrupt at any level? Can we just not be corrupt for 5 seconds? Please. That's all I'm asking. Can we just have a modicum of actual democracy or constitutional democracy? Because none of this is it. They're holding the trial an hour away from where it happened. They're doing a speedy trial while allowing this guy to speak out of his ass, when the body cam footage itself should be the most damning piece of evidence there is, which for anyone with any brain cells could see. He was talking to her with his hand on his hip. He was itching to use it, and she was panicking. Like, this is fucking ridiculous. And all I'm seeing here is that it's accused and on trial. So apparently there is no resolution yet. So I guess we got a couple more videos we can still watch. So let's do Representative-elect Grijalva.
And joining me now is Democratic Congresswoman-elect Adelita Grijalva of Arizona. Thank you so much for joining me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's wonderful to have you. Congratulations on your win. Let's talk about this limbo in which you find yourself. It's now been over a month since you won your election. Have you had any conversations with House Speaker Mike Johnson about his swearing you in? What is your message to him?
No, we've attempted to contact the office twice, sent a letter before the AG sent their letter. And all we really wanted to have is give us a date. And because he is creating this limbo, someone described it as a congressional purgatory, because you are in off, you know, the caucus, the Democratic caucus has been incredibly welcoming, encouraging me to participate in all of the meetings, but I have to be escorted in when we're doing any of it because I am not a member of Congress. And so at every turn, it is highlighted on a regular basis that I do not have the full privileges or the responsibilities that are bestowed upon somebody who is a member.
Well, you have been arguing.
Which goes back to the point of this is by design. And at this point, if the government shutdown remains, then her being in limbo is literal proof that because I guess there aren't any other special elections occurring. So what would be the true test of this situation is if there's a special election in which a Republican wins, and then they immediately give them the red carpet treatment and allow them to be sworn in and all this, that, and the other. So it's crazy to me that this is happening, whether or not that she's a Democrat, whether or not that she's a woman. The fact that it's happening because there is no other contrast to put against it. Meanwhile, this government shutdown is the perfect set of circumstances to allow this administration to act with impunity. So it leads me to believe more and more that there is an unprecedented likelihood of midterm election interference if this situation is to be used as an example. Yeah, why aren't the Democrats protesting at his house? They're just pretending things are going as normal. And this is the absolute opposite of normal. Getting people in quick if they are a Team Red winner is a Team Red specialty of hypocrisy. No, I 100% agree.
That Speaker Johnson is depriving your constituents of representation, as you just did here. I do want to play something earlier this week that Mike Johnson said. Take a look.
The only thing she can't do right now is vote on the floor because no one is, because we're not in legislative session. That's the only thing she's prevented from doing. There's a lot of important casework to be done by her constituents who need help and need guidance right now, and she could be on the phone all day long, as the rest of us are, trying to help her constituents navigate through it. It's a bit of a red herring for her to say there's nothing for her to do.
What
the fuck are you talking about, bro? You are literally preventing a duly elected person from being sworn in, which does mitigate some of her ability to do stuff. Yeah, fine. Anybody can get on the phone. You're right. She could be doing that. She probably is doing that. But being able to hold votes, to vote on legislation, to be on the committees and co-sign or co-chair or any of this stuff, she can't do any of those things. She can't do her actual function. All she can do is be a slightly more elevated volunteer organizer.
Response, is it a red herring?
No, his assessment of the situation is the problem. And the fact that, you know, what he is doing is trying to set up a case that I can do all of the things. I don't have a budget. I can't open up an office in district. Those are essential things. I technically do not have constituents until I am in office. That's the situation that Michael Johnson has put me in. He's put me in this limbo where, you know, I'm in an office space, but there's so many things that I cannot do. And that is the problem. And I really am so disappointed in his leadership and the way he is trying to mislead the public as to what I can and cannot do.
So, again, why are you using disappointed? Why not just say, I'm livid, and so should everybody in my district. So should every American. She should be calling to action every single American, all 11.6 million subscribers, all 6,000 viewers who watch this. She should be calling them to action. Hey, This isn't right. This isn't the way things should be. This isn't how this works. Contact your congressman, to include Mike Johnson, or order him, demand that he turn on Congress again, that he ends the shutdown. Like, all you're doing is trying to give yourself a slight bump in polling and sympathy. You're not actually calling for anything. You're not actually demanding anything. You're just like, this is really unfortunate and I'm really disappointed, but what are you going to do? Like, I'm running for Congress. I am in the gathering signatures, building a team, building a campaign stage of running for Congress. And if I get to the primary, win the primary, get to the general, win the general, and then find out I'm not going to get sworn in on January 21st because of a government shutdown, I am raising hell. I am raising all of the hell on every single network that'll have me. Ellen DeGeneres, Hassan, the Young Turks, the Majority Report, NBC News, CNN. I'll even go on Fox and blow a gasket. Like, blowing a gasket is the appropriate response to being gaslit out of being sworn in after you won your election. And anything less than that to me is again, complicit. But when it was the speaker, they wanted to get someone in badly, right? They held every single vote when it was politically expedient and advantageous to the Republican Party. Jesus fucking Christ. This will be the last video for today. We're not going to watch all of it, but Gavin Newsom and Kamala talk about 2028
10 months
runs.
Into his second term,
Unfucking
President
believable.
Donald Trump is already musing about potentially running for a third term.
Yeah, this happened while speaking to reporters on Air Force One. Trump refused to rule out another run in 2028, saying, "I would love to do it." Now, let's not forget, he is constitutionally barred from running for a third term. He also praised his Vice President, J.D. Vance, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, singling them out as future leaders of the Republican Party.
We have J.D.
Fuck off.
Vice President is great.
I'm talking about the 2028 race.
Over the weekend, California Governor Gavin Newsom, one of Donald Trump's fiercest critics, said he is thinking about a run for the White House.
Gavin Newsom looks like a villain as well. Like, he actually looks like a villain from My Hero Academia. Reed Destro. With the nose, with the slick back hair, the suit. He looks like an actual anime villain. And he is an anime villain. Because this motherfucker has the power to send the National Guard out of California, or to order him to stand down, to order ICE out of California, to use the National Guard to expel ICE from California. This motherfucker could have been leading the charge against this corruption. And the only thing he's doing is buying as much hair gel as he can and getting in front of a fucking stage. It's insanity.
In 3 years. And the Democratic nominee from 2024, Kamala Harris, remember her? Well, she says she has not made up her mind yet either about another run. Have a listen.
I'm looking forward to who presents themselves in 2028 and who meets that moment. And that's the question for the American people.
Is it fair to say after the 2026 midterms, you're going to give it serious thought?
Yeah, I'd be lying otherwise. I'd just be lying, and I can't do that.
When are they going to see a woman in charge in the White House?
In their lifetime, for sure.
Could it be you? Possibly. Have you made a decision yet?
No, I have not.
Well, the Democrats and American people have made their decision resoundingly when they rejected you as governor of California, never mind president of the fucking United States of America. So I'm pretty sure that answer is pretty damn clear. Yeah, this is House of Cards. Abso-fucking-lutely. Let's see. They were warned these schools would play these crappy games to keep red controlled. No, and they were warned. And everybody under the sun was saying that this was going to happen. This is House of Cards, a literal snake oil salesman. He's not even a good troll. He's just a despicable slime ball. He has 2028 loser written all over him. He's like if Tim Kaine and the 2016 loser had a love child. No, listen. I agree with absolutely everything y'all just said there. And it was his Latina social media coordinator was the one doing the trolling anyway. Right. So, that was one way to end at least a little bit of frustration, but not like appalling dystopian nightmare. So, that brings us to the end of our stream. And what a stream it has been. Honestly, we have had much more frustrating streams, much more anger and emotional inducing streams than this one. But we've never had a stream that painted a bleak picture as much as this one. We have seen way too many pieces come together to fit a puzzle that looks like fascism and authoritarian control than we have in this one. With the government shutdown and the fact that that is going to affect the judiciary and that it isn't going to be funded outright is a deeply concerning matter for us all. And it heavily implies that this is the goal of the administration. We also have seen two of the biggest Democrat names put their names in the hat for potential running for office, and yet none of us feel safer or better for it. On top of the fact that neither us nor their own party feel particularly supportive of them anyway. With that being said, there is hope for the future. And it's not just me saying vote for me or support me. There is hope for the future. But that hope stems from the ability for all of us to work together and to come together. We have to start being out there. We have to start being vocal. And we have to start having the difficult conversations. With even your most milquetoast family members who voted just because they felt it was something they had to do. And even if they happen to vote MAGA, now is the time to have those hard conversations. It's like, okay, this is our bed and now we have to lay in it. And the reality is this vote, your vote, this support right here has brought us to where we are today. It's unfortunate, but if you want to make amends, then you have to start acting against what this stands for. So, on that note, this is our streaming schedule. We will be live again tomorrow. We'll be talking about foreign policy, Worldwide Wednesdays, 7 p.m. Eastern till 10 p.m. Eastern. And with that, I wish you all a great night. Have a great rest of your day, and hopefully things start improving in our country. Samuel Ronan, your president, out.